We're live. All right, too easy. All right, hey, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? Michael, host of the Smoke Pit Podcast. And once again, you're going to take notice that Jake doing adult things, moving, kicking ass, taking names, doing what he's got to do, right? But join with me is Brock. Brock, how you doing?
I'm great, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Hey, so for the folks that don't know what you do, can you talk about that?
So I'm Brock with the Blacklisted Gaming Podcast. You guys probably see me around. I'm one of the regiment stream team members, and if you've actually watched my podcast too, you've seen me with Doc, and I like to talk shit to Doc all the time. So, but yeah, we have a gaming podcast, been around since 2019. We talk about gaming news and all the latest and greatest in the gaming industry, and every once in a while we'll have a guest on, and it's basically like Barracks Talk, but about video games. So, but yeah, you probably see me around. I'm one of the moderators with Regiment. I've been in the regiment since November 2020. So yeah, if you don't know who I am yet, now you do. It's actually weird being on. It's weird being on the opposite side of the microphone though, because I'm not used to being a guest. I'm used to being the host. I'm used to being the one that's asking the questions, and now I get to be asked the questions. So there's no pressure on me today, so it's great.
Yeah, I don't even doubt it. You get to just kind of sit back and be like, wow, I'm doing a podcast without having to.
Yeah, it's just like, what do you want to know? Do you want to know my shoe size? Do you want to know? What do you want to know?
You want to know my shoe size? You want to know what brand of shoes I'm wearing? I wonder how Tooth Pete felt too. Have you ever done anything with him?
I have not. He's a stream team member too, isn't he?
Yeah, and he's one of the I guess he's one of the 20 people in the United States, man, that can stream Thursday Night Football on Twitch. And I was like, wow.
How's he able to do that?
Dude, he's got to deal with NFL, man. Like he's signed with NFL. It's cool, man. I don't know if you've seen the first episode. You should definitely watch it. But he talks about at one point when his dad, he was like, my dad just doesn't get it, doesn't understand this whole streaming thing at all. And he's like, we're all at San Diego. And he's like, he's getting ready to do something. And his dad's like, let's go. And he's like, no, I got to record this. I'm signed with the NFL. And he's like, no, you're not. We got to go. It's funny, man. You should definitely watch it. But
there's a lot of people that don't understand the streaming thing. And it's kind of unfortunate because, on one hand, there's this people have this delusion that if they stream, they're going to become famous. On the other hand, it's like they don't put the work in to grow it. So then they just and then of course, if people will look at that, and granted, that is a lot of people that are streaming that are in that, in that category.
Yeah.
But if you are consistent with it and it's actually something that you enjoy to do, there's a lot of people that don't understand that passion because it's just I don't get it. Why do you do that? And it's more of for me, when it comes to streaming and podcasting, it's I do it because I enjoy doing it. And I'm not trying to become the next Joe Rogan out of it or anything like that. I just talk about the news and I hang out with my friends and we just record it and put it on YouTube or on Spotify. And essentially that's what it is. And the best thing about podcasting is that you don't have to be, you're not under anybody's rule except your own.
Yeah.
You're on your own schedule. Nobody can tell you no. There's no corporations behind it saying what you can and can't say, what you can and can't talk about. So you can just pretty much do and say whatever you want. My podcast, it is a gaming podcast, but because, let's go back into why we're called the Blacklisted Gaming Podcast. So I started the podcast back in 2019, well before COVID. And the reason why I did it was because I was one of those idiots that pre-ordered video games. And those games always shit when they came out. And I didn't understand why. So I started diving more into gaming news and trying to figure out what's going on. And then there's all these things that are happening behind the scenes of gaming that I'm like, people need to hear about this shit.
Yeah.
So, but I noticed that people that were speaking out, and this is at the time when studios were doing what was called blacklisting to game reviewers. What they would do is you had publishers like EA. Bethesda actually was one of the most famous ones that did this, but they would do this thing called blacklisting, and these journalists and these other gaming news content creators would talk ill of a game because the game really did suck. And Bethesda would blacklist them to where they weren't able to go to any of the conventions, go to any of the pre-release, reveals and stuff like that, or get a review copy of any of the game that they were trying to, release, and then have a review copy from everybody else to talk about the game.
Wow.
So we were just we're unbiased. We'll say it's just exactly how it is, and we don't give a shit.
Yeah.
So that's how we got the name Blacklisted Gaming. And one of our first topics that we ever talked about was, besides Anthem and how that was a horrible failure.
Yeah.
One of our first topics was actually telling people that there's a game coming out, and a game coming out that EA is publishing that no one's talked about because there's no advertising for it, and it's kind of being put out, under the radar versus everything else that EA does, and it's called Apex Legends. And people were like, "That's not true."
That's not true.
There was a guy in the gym. I was like, "Hey, you're a gamer, right?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "There's a game coming out by Respawn. And it's in the Titanfall universe. It's called Apex Legends. It's a battle royale. And it's gonna be free to play, and it comes out Monday apparently." He's like, "There's no way. I've never even heard of this." And now look, Apex is one of the biggest games out right now.
Yeah. I remember first trying to play that game, and I was like, I can't do this shit. It's whack. I don't know what I'm doing.
I loved it when it first came out. I was like, wow, really? They did things that the battle royale games didn't do at the time. Like, the pinging system wasn't a thing. And so like you had,
which is huge. I love that.
It is huge. And like Warzone took after a lot of what Apex did, even though I hate Call of Duty. But the only battle royale games that were popular at the time was either PUBG or Blackout.
Oh yeah, this is when H1Z1 got phased out, right?
Yeah, H1Z1.
It was called H1 standalone, or I don't know. It's
H1Z1 when it came out on consoles was kind of a shit show because it wasn't really finished, and like matchmaking was so ridiculous because either nobody was playing or the servers couldn't handle the number of people that were trying. So
naturally,
it had a lot of issues, and that ended up just kind of fizzling out like everything does when the popularity doesn't catch on early. And so the only two games that were in the battle royale genre at the time were PUBG and Blackout. And Blackout was, it was there. People liked it because, Call of Duty is doing something a little bit different. And PUBG was just PUBG, but PUBG was also starting, like, people were getting sick of it. So Apex came out, and it was something new. It was in the Titanfall universe. They did more things to where, like, there was more team coordination with people that weren't talking to you. And eventually, like, and I noticed this. Fortnite was the other battle royale that was out at the time when Apex launched. The Fortnite crew flooded Apex, and it was just a shit show. So, and then I think after like season 2, I quit playing it.
Yeah, I think I just didn't like how different Apex was when I started playing it, because I just didn't know how to handle something like that. Like, I don't know what it is. I keep saying this stuff, but like as I'm getting older, it's like I'm catching on to things a little bit easier, and I'm just kind of like enjoying things. But like Apex, I couldn't do it. I'm like, why is this guy doing this thing and I can only do this? And I'm like, But now I enjoy it. Now I'm like, yo, Apex is pretty cool. I don't play it like that. But like last night, I got into Valorant when just 2 episodes ago, I was like, I could never fucking imagine playing it. And now look at me, right?
Yeah, I tried it. I can't get into it at all.
It took me a while.
Like,
I played like one game of it when it came out, and then uninstall. Haven't touched it since.
The thing with Apex that a lot of people weren't used to was the fact that like you had the legends, which, if you really look at like what other games are, like, like Overwatch and stuff, you had, it's a hero shooter. So all your players have different abilities and stuff. And your squad can't run with the same person. So what Apex did that I don't think any other battle royale at the time was doing was that they introduced that element of like, the heroes having their own abilities and stuff. So each legend has its own ability. And like, that was the one thing that we're like, why can that guy do something that I can't do? And it was all figuring out who you want to run the most. And if somebody else liked that character too and picked it before you could, then you had to run with somebody else. So that was like one of the things that a lot of people didn't like at the beginning. Now it's like, I don't know. Like, it seems like everyone's just kind of they can run with whoever they need to.
Yeah.
But the one thing I liked about it was that, and a lot of people didn't realize this, that it's in the Titanfall universe. It's a Titanfall game. It's just not Titanfall.
See, that I didn't even know. That's kind of cool to think about.
If you go play Titanfall 2, it's basically like a standalone Apex Legends game. Because like you had the pilots and then the Apex Predators. The Apex Predators are the guys that you're playing in Apex Legends. So I even think that Apex had a pilot event where you were playing as the Titan pilots.
Damn.
So yeah, it's all in the Titanfall universe. Like the weapons are the same. Everything's the same. It was just like, oh man, wouldn't that be great if like they had like a legend that could just drop Titans, like in the match, and like Apex Legends Battle Royale was just like Titans falling out of the sky, and they never did it. So
Dude, let me mind fuck you for a second, dude. Listen to this. Okay, so Halo universe, right? Imagine when Infinite Warfare came out, they actually publicly stated, "Hey, man, both of these games are actually coexisting in the same universe at that time." Because you remember how so much of that shit kind of like reminisce, yeah, like you see the Spartan rocket launcher from Infinite Warfare, and you're like, okay, why does it look like the Halo 4 rocket launcher? And at the same time, why is it called the Spartan? You know what I'm saying? That was shit like that,
You
man.
thinking
So imagine if
crossing
they,
over like an awesome series like Halo with the worst Call of Duty ever launched?
yeah, but what I'm saying is like, what if at the same time, because you know what's funny is I didn't really like Advanced Warfare too much, but I enjoyed playing it to start because I kind of felt like I was playing Halo, but as the UNSC. You know what I'm saying? I was like,
Mhm.
I'm the Marines in Halo. And that's kind of how I ended up digging Infinite Warfare. But I'm also a Call of Duty fanboy, dude. So, except for Vanguard, I didn't even buy Vanguard. I downloaded the free to play event and it was trash. So I uninstalled, right? But I'm definitely getting Modern Warfare 2. I don't care. I'm here
Don't
for it.
pre-order it.
I'm not going to pre-order it,
Don't
but I
pre-order it.
am going to get it. Yeah, I haven't. It's so funny too that you mentioned that about pre-order because we talked about that in the last 2 episodes, man, about how all these companies are doing the same thing. They blow up this huge game, and then you have like Battlefield 2042. It drops, and you're like, "What am I playing?" You know?
That's and shit like that is exactly why I made I came up with my podcast, because it's like, if only I could get more ears on like, hey, this is what's happening behind the scenes. Because what I like to do is I've noticed a trend in gaming since 2016, when I actually started doing like looking into this stuff more.
Mm-hmm.
There's a trend that goes around with especially with pre-orders and hyping games.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've also noticed a trend, like just by looking at the trailer, I could tell you that something's wrong with the game. So like for 2042, the one thing that stood out to me the most about their trailer and their gameplay trailer was like, hey, I've noticed that there's not really showcasing destruction. The
Yeah.
one thing that Battlefield and DICE, the EA and DICE have always done in every single Battlefield trailer, is that the first thing they do is they highlight destruction. And
Mm-hmm.
they didn't do that in this one. I was just like, something tells me that there's really not going to be any in this game. And then the beta came out, and the thing I tell people about betas is that betas are not betas. Betas are demos.
Yeah.
They're what they reflect, if not directly, but they reflect mostly of what the final product is going to be like.
Yeah.
So this whole thing that they were saying, the beta for 2042 is an older build. No, what they consider an old build is 2 months prior to the beta's launch,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually the game, because betas come out a month or two before the game comes out. I can
Mm-hmm.
tell you right now, all the issues that you find in a beta, minus some minor bugs, core issues like with the gameplay, with like that are like deep code embedded things that would actually require a game to be overhauled, are not going to get fixed on the day one patch. Day one patches are a scam.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried telling people this about Call of Duty. The problem with Call of Duty is you have Activision, right? Activision has no regard for its player base. And the reason why I say this is because the hacking in Warzone has been rampant since day fucking one.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's been saying, oh, the Ricochet anti-cheat. And I even said, when they announced the Ricochet anti-cheat, I said, that's not going to work. Guarantee you it's not going to work. And then when it came out that the hack companies actually got the source code to Ricochet and were able to backwards engineer the cheat engine, the anti-cheat engine, I was like, oh, it's game over. Cheaters are still
Mm-hmm.
going to be running rampant in Warzone. And they're like, you don't know what you're talking about. And look, here we are still to this day. Cheaters are running rampant in Warzone. And
Yeah.
then Vanguard, I watch development cycles very closely when it comes to games.
Mm-hmm.
Cold War and Vanguard were ones that like really stood out when it was, in the last couple years. And the first one, we're going to talk about Cold War. When Warzone came out, everybody was great. It was fun at first and stuff, and then it just turned into bullshit. When they announced Cold War, the biggest issue is that the number of development studios they had working on Cold War, I want to say they had 3 of their studios working on it at the same time. And
Mm-hmm.
originally it was going to be Raven Software, or I'm sorry, Sledgehammer and Raven Software were working hand in hand on Cold War. Well, Sledgehammer and Raven weren't actually working well together. They had a lot of, conflicting issues with the game. It was just like it was causing a lot of tension, and development was running slow. So Activision told Treyarch to come in and take over and spearhead the whole thing. So you had Treyarch, Raven, and Sledgehammer all working on the same game. And then Cold War launched, and it ended up being kind of dog shit, right?
Yeah.
And that was why I'm like, you have too many hands in the cookie jar, and it's not gonna, your final product is gonna be a mess. And they were rushing it because they were like, we have a deadline to meet, and we got to get this out now.
My problem too was the movement in that game. Like, what the fuck was that? Between Modern Warfare and Cold War, I felt like I was skating on damn ice when I played Cold War. I just didn't like
Because
that
they
at
were
all.
using a different engine. So that was the other thing. Infinity Ward, when they launched Modern Warfare and Warzone, they were using a brand new engine. So a lot of the issues, I was more forgiving of a lot of the issues that we had in Modern Warfare because Infinity Ward was using a new engine. With a new engine comes a lot of new issues. And these new issues take a while to buff out and learn. And especially if you're using a new engine, like you don't really understand like how to fix it right away. So it's going to take some time. I can be more forgiving of certain things when it comes to that aspect. The problem with Cold War was that it was running on the Black Ops 4 engine. Yes. And
you know what? Now that I see that in the movement, wow.
Yeah, and I had some questions like, so does this mean the new Warzone, like that they're going to integrate like Cold War with Warzone? Does that mean Warzone's going to run on the same engine as Black Ops 4? So we're going to get a step backwards. So I even told people, I'm like, Cold War is going to feel like a step backwards. It's going to feel like an older game because it's running on an older engine. And then the same with Vanguard. Vanguard's, I don't know if I think Vanguard they said was running on the same engine as Advanced Warfare. Because Sledgehammer was the developer. Oh, I'm sorry. No, World War II. It was the same engine as World War II.
Okay, I was gonna say, man, yeah.
My bad. So like Sledgehammer made World War II, right? So when I found out that Sledgehammer was making the next Call of Duty, and I'm like, what's that going to be? And then they came out, oh, the next Call of Duty is going to be a World War II one. And I'm like, so Sledgehammer's making another World War II Call of Duty on the World War II engine. So basically what they're doing is they're going to be reusing assets from World War II.
Yeah.
And they pretty much did. And they started development on that game roughly at the end of the development cycle of Cold War. So I tried telling people, I'm like, you are going to hate Vanguard. As soon as they announced what the next Call of Duty was going to be, I'm like, you're going to hate it. And nobody believed me. And I even said, and look at it now, people hate Vanguard.
Yeah, and there was probably only like 2 people that even fucking asked for a World War II game. Like, dude, what? Right. Nobody wanted that.
Right. It was just like a very like half-ass put together game. And mostly what they were trying to do, because Activision was still milking the Warzone cow. It kept saying that like Warzone's going to carry over to every Call of Duty. I'm like, okay, so these games aren't going to be good on their own. They're just basically more content to throw into Warzone. That's what it is. That's all it ever is. It's like that's their moneymaker.
You know what makes me sad, dude? Because I'm a huge Call of Duty fan. Like I am. I like Call of Duty, and I remember, you know, I think everybody has that like nostalgia phase too, like where they were you would just get on, you would play Search and Destroy, you'd fuck some people up, and you're like, yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But I swear, man, what drives me nuts is when I'm wandering around like on Warzone, or I reach certain areas of a map, and I'm like, dude, this is a reused fucking asset from Modern Warfare original. Like, I'm talking old school Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. Like, I will recognize a house design and be like, dude, yeah, this was on this fucking map in Modern Warfare.
See, reusing assets is a very common thing in the gaming industry. And one of it's not because of laziness, it's because of time constraints. And that's why Activision is finally, after all these years, breaking the yearly release date cycle. They're going to be doing it every 2 years now.
Yeah, they should have never went to the year anyways. I don't know why they did that. I think they just kind of wanted to pump out more games, right?
There was money. Yeah. That's why they did it. They did it because it was money. That Call of Duty is a very lucrative, asset to them. In fact, it's their most lucrative asset as a company. And Activision doesn't care about you; they care about the money. And the reason why, and there's the biggest telltale sign that they don't give a shit about what the players go through and like the quality of the game. If you remember back when Warzone, it was probably like around the Cold War integration, when there was that issue with hacking where when you killed a hacker, you unlocked everything, right? So Activision, what is going on with this thing? I need a
I
new
remember
light.
that shit from like Black Ops 1, dude, and
So
2 and 3.
So if they had an issue where killing a hacker would unlock all the skins and like all the attachments for every weapon that you had,
Yeah.
which put their store in danger, essentially.
Mhm.
So when it came to that, they fixed it within days.
Mhm.
And it was like, oh, you can do something about hackers, you just choose not to. So when it came down to like their store being, in jeopardy about the money that they were losing out on for this whole hack that was coming out, they fixed that real quick. But every other hacking issue that we had in Warzone, it had been, I don't know, let's see. It was like Modern or Warzone launched what? It was like March 2020.
Mhm.
And then we didn't get Ricochet anti-cheat until 5-6 months ago, maybe.
Damn. I think, and I think a lot of the big fucking YouTubers and streamers leaving. I'm sure somebody sat back and were like, "We might lose a little bit of,
It was
engagement,
absolutely
streams,
the
money."
Ricochet thing was just a way to keep people playing because they knew that the people were leaving because of the issues
Mhm.
that were going on with the game. So they were losing money. They didn't put out Ricochet to make the quality of life in the game, like your experience, to be better. They put it out there so that you would keep playing it. And the other thing that Activision does that I have this theory is completely intentional is file size.
Yeah, fuckers. I've heard this
So,
shit.
so you know where I'm going at with this?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Why the file sizes are so big?
Yeah, because it forces you to have to play that fucking game. Because if
Exactly.
you don't, like, you can't have it installed or something.
So
Yeah.
I said this, I've been saying this for about over a year now. Like ever since that I noticed that every update was getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then
Yeah.
my buddy was just like, dude, I'm having to delete games out of my thing. And I'm like, you know what? I remember back in 2019, Activision was talking about new ways to monetize their games.
Mhm.
Because when Blackout rolled into using loot boxes, after they said, "Hey, we're not going to have loot boxes in this game because everybody fucking hates them," they ended up rolling out loot boxes anyway, and their stocks dropped because people were like revolting against it. So Activision was looking and was saying that they were patenting new ways to monetize their games. So that what they were doing is that they were exploring this new way to monetize. And this is my theory of why the file sizes are so big. So shareholders they invest into a company because of how well a game is doing. And when the game starts doing bad, the shareholders pull out. Look at CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk, right?
Mhm.
Their shares are down about 75%. So
Yeah.
you have shareholders that are backing out and threatening Activision, saying that, like, hey, we're done. Like, you guys are not listening to people. Like, people are leaving. We're not making money off of your product anymore. So
Mhm.
their stocks were at an all-time low when they said that they were looking for new ways to
Here,
monetize.
give me one second, one second, one second. Wait, let it. Are you seeing this too?
But
I'm trying to do some juju here. We're getting into Discord robot mode for some reason.
we're getting back into robo mode.
Yeah, 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 yeah. All right, say a sentence.
Say a sentence.
Hey, okay. CD Project Red shareholders backing out. Boom.
So shareholders are backing out. So back in 2019, when shareholders were backing out, Activision was talking about new ways to monetize because the loot box thing wasn't working and they weren't making a lot of money off of it. Shareholders were saying, like, hey, we're out.
Mm-hmm.
So hang on, I lost my train of thought with it. So like their new way of monetize is that a healthy player base, an active player base, will keep shareholders invested into the company because people are playing it, money's coming in, their
Mm-hmm.
stock worth will go up. Their way of keeping people playing these games, no matter how bad they are, is to make their file sizes so big that you have no choice but to delete it all or use an SS like an external SSD to store all your games.
Yeah.
It's down now to the point where my buddy's PS4, because he can't get a PS5, his internal storage was just Call of Duty because that's all he had room for, and it got to the point where he couldn't even update the game anymore because the file sizes were too big. I was looking into it at the time. Call of Duty's file size was around 300 to 400 gigs.
Fucking ridiculous, man.
And Red Dead Redemption, oh no, I'm sorry, not Red Dead. It was Destiny 2 was about 90 gigs.
Yeah, and Destiny 2 is probably a bigger fucking
It's a
game.
bigger game, more maps, like more content, and they're constantly rolling out content every month. Especially it being a live service game and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And their file size is about less than a quarter of what Call of Duty's file size is. So I'm like, you know what? This is their new way of monetizing because like the player base can't die if the player base only can play their game.
Yeah.
So shareholders will stay invested because the player base is thriving. That's not dropping. So I've noticed this in every game when the player base starts to dip, the stock share worth starts to dip as well. So them doing that is strong arming players to staying on their games and keeping their stock price where it's at. Granted, their controversy within the company is kind of, doing the work for us there, but
Yeah.
I hate Activision. I hate their CEO. Bobby Kotick's an asshole. He needs to get out. But like, I could honestly go on for hours about that shit.
When it's so sad, man, because like I'm like one of those, I guess like I have like almost an unconditional love for Call of Duty, right? Like I will recognize when I feel like I'm gonna be fucked over. Like Vanguard, there was no way in shit that I was gonna get that game because I didn't even get World War II. Because I had a strong feeling World War II would be nothing like World at War. Because I feel like World at War is damn near untouchable. That's just my personal opinion, right? But I will always come back to Call of Duty, man. And all they have to do is just fucking fix their shit, just make a playable game, and people are going to keep playing the game, Because I don't know about you, but like for me, dude, Verdansk, fucking original Warzone, like that was so replayable for me because I finally got into it like a couple months after. Like everyone, like once people started leaving is when I kind of joined, which is kind of a weird thing that I kind of want to dive into here in a second. But it's like, it's so playable for me, man. I can just kind of step in and just kind of play. But I think that's what Call of Duty's always been. It's kind of been that quick shooter for you to be like, you know what? I kind of want to go fuck some people up in some search, man. Let's do it. And then for an hour, you find yourself killing people, and then you're like, yep, I'm good. I got my fix, right?
So yeah, the problem with Warzone is that when they made Warzone, I don't think they understood the scope of what the popularity would be. So they didn't really have like an end game when it came to this. So we had Verdansk and everything was cool for a while. Then it started to become stale. So it's like we need something new. Like you got other games like Apex, Fortnite, all these other games that are, in the same genre that are constantly putting out new shit. And the only thing that we're getting is
stuff.
New map, new areas and stuff. And most we're getting is maybe a couple new guns and some new operators that you want us to buy in the fucking store.
Yeah. Which, you know what? It's that you mentioned it, dude. That is one thing I like about Call of Duty, though. They feel a little overpriced, but for some reason, dude, some of those operators, like they almost feel like collectibles for me personally, because I've seen some of those operators, and I'm like, yo, this is great. Like the version of Ghost, what is it? What do you call it? The Grim Reaper version of Ghost, dude. I love that operator, dude. I want that on my wall.
It's cool and all, but you do know that none of that transfers over to the Warzone 2, right?
Well, and then I'll take a picture of it and I'll keep it on my phone forever, dude. Like I will cherish it. It makes me sad though. I am kind of internally crying right now. But
when I was playing it, I was very careful about what I bought in the store because it was like, what am I actually going to use throughout the life of this game? And now that they said that Warzone 2 isn't going to carry over any progression or anything that you ever got from Warzone 1. It's just like, okay, so you bought a digital asset that's like, it doesn't carry over to anything else. And you have these people that are spending crazy amounts of money. And their price model for these operators is just stupid. Like the Halloween event when they came out, they had Leatherface and they had, the Reaper Ghost and all these and the Jigsaw.
25,000.
It was like in order to buy all of them, you had to spend like $80.
That's like
for all of
game,
them,
dude.
And it's just like, and they know that you're going to want it.
Yeah.
So that's what they're banking on. And the COD points are modeled in a way that where you will always be just short to where you have to buy more. And you'll be short by like 100 COD points every single time.
I noticed
that. That's intentional to strong arm you into monetize and into going into their store and buying more COD points because you can't just buy the right number. And it goes the same with any microtransactions in any game. There's actually like a whole seminar out, and I'll send it to you too about how mobile games, how monetization is modeled for its player base. So they look at the completionists, they look at the collectors, they look at all these other aspects of the gambling addicts of how they monetize their games. So will it have loot boxes? Will it have paywalls? Will it have time gates on it? So if you're like trying to beat a game in a certain, like you don't want to sit here and spend exorbitant amounts of hours into a game, but if you pay us $5 or like $2, like you can move on, that kind of shit. So like it's all modeled based off of like, you know, it like off the analysis they get off the player base. So they
Because I
know
noticed that with the PUBG Mobile, man, like everything was like monetized on there.
everything is.
I mean,
It's
you
like
could buy,
it's a mobile game scheme. Like it's the monetization in gaming, and it's just like, yeah, on one side, if you have a free to play game, then sure, like monetize how you can, but don't be too crazy about it, Diablo. But yeah, speaking of another Activision Blizzard bullshit, like Diablo Immortal. Do you know how much money it costs to fully rank up one character in Diablo Immortal?
Mm-mm.
$500,000.
Real money?
Yes. To max
What?
out, yeah, to max out one character. It'll either take you on average, because like the only way to max out like gear stats is to
Yeah.
get these items that are only obtainable in loot boxes. And because the chances of earning these in these loot boxes are so low, at the best luck, it'll cost you about 100 grand. At the worst luck, it'll cost you just under $1 million. And then on average, it costs about 500,000 to max out one character. Or if you don't want to pay, it'll take you 10 years.
That sounds like a millionaire's game. That sounds like something millionaires should be playing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, Activision, this is how they do their monetization. They bank on the whales doing this kind of shit because they know people will do it, and they don't, and they sacrifice everything else. Like they just make it so grindy that it forces your hand into like, and it gives you this idea that you're not spending that much because it's like nickel and diming you.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, you spent $1,000 and didn't even know it.
Yeah.
It's a psychological thing. So like they make you think that you're not spending that much, so that when you end up spending a lot, there it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like you like that's what it is. There's a
And it's
guy.
like, no, you're good. Keep going.
There was a guy that was he was streaming Diablo Immortal, and he was spending his money on these loot boxes. And before he got the first, because you need legendary gems or legendary crests to rank up your gear to the max level, he spent 15 grand before he got one.
Ouch, man. That's ow.
He could afford it, granted, and he was doing it to prove a point, but the point still stands. Like your chances of earning these items to rank up your character are so low that you will spend insane amounts of money and time trying to get this one thing.
Yeah.
And you need 10 of them.
But I say wow out of embarrassment for the fucking company, dude. Like, I feel like that's just so trash. Like, I would never play the game.
See, Activision's a shit company. That's why I'm like, you know, when it comes to Modern Warfare 2, as much as I'm like, I really would like to play it, I'm probably not going to, because supporting Activision right now with the way that they do their business model, it feeds the machine and it incentivizes them to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And when people stop doing it, then that forces their hand to change. Look at EA with Battlefront 2. When they threw in loot boxes and everybody revolted against them for it, they took it out. And it had got so as far as like Disney was like, we're going to strip the Star Wars rights from you if you don't change this. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and Battlefront 2 wasn't really a bad game. It wasn't really my thing, because my bread and butter is obviously the original Battlefront 1 and 2. And when I tell you, like as a kid, like playing on that original Xbox, man, I used to replay Bespin Cloud City like all fucking day, dude. I used to love that map. But like the new Battlefront's just kind of
like, and the point that I'm getting at with all of it is that bad monetization will ruin a game. Like it and like the game could be great. And even if people that say Diablo Immortal at its core as a game is a good game, it's a good Diablo game. But the problem is, like, when you look at Activision and Call of Duty, they focus so heavily on the store that they sacrifice the quality of the entire game.
Yeah.
And that's why you constantly have this cycle of people saying like last Call of Duty was better than this one. It's the same cycle. At the beginning, this thing's awesome. Then a month later, like this fucking sucks. The last one was better. And then the new one comes out and they think it's going to be different. It's rinse and repeat. It's like an abusive relationship.
Well, I can't even tell you how upset I am to see fucking Halo Infinite with a store, man. Like Halo's never had something like this. And I'm like, I'm thinking Halo Infinite, we're gonna kick back to some classic, like they're talking classic art style. And I'm like, man, we might get something where like let's see a store like Halo Reach. You know what I'm saying? Where we really got a lot of sweet options. And then they just come out with some dumb fucking armor and they're like 25,000 points. And I'm like, man, like
I know. And like at its see, here's the thing: at its core, Halo Infinite's campaign was actually pretty good. It was probably one of the best Halo campaigns I played since Halo 3, or
I
well,
like
not
the
Halo 3, but
campaign,
like
but I still felt like we got like not even like half a fucking year's worth of like story. Like I liked
yeah,
it, but at the same time, I felt like as soon as those first couple missions were over and you started doing open world, and I'm like, dude, like, come on, man. Like, I'm not saying that I could have written that campaign myself, but I grew up writing short stories. I can write something like that in my head, you know, give me a couple fucking months. You know what I'm saying? Like, I felt like there should have been more like attachment, you know, but then again, don't get me wrong. Dude, I'm not going to lie to you. That's probably the first Halo campaign where I actually got emotional. Like when he's sitting down, like that was, they really tapped into some core emotion, dude, with that
it
campaign.
did. And
But
that's
I
why
feel
I
like
like
there needs
that.
to be
That's why I
more.
like that campaign. I was like, you know, it's not perfect, but it is
Mhm,
good. Like compared
mhm,
to the last couple Halo installments they did, this
mhm.
one was actually really good. And sure, the open world could get kind of, you know, monotonous after a little bit, but you know, the story of Halo Infinite was still good. The
Mhm.
multiplayer at first was like, oh, cool, this feels like playing Halo again. I miss this. And the nostalgia wore off after a few weeks, and then you
Yeah.
realize everything's put behind a store. They're not releasing content. And like that's the other thing. If you have a live service game and you're not releasing new content, but you keep adding to your store, that'll also kill your game. And
Mhm.
Activision does the same shit with Call of Duty.
Yeah.
They know because they know that that people will buy it. So I try to say the people that play that are like huge COD fanboys, widen your scope a little bit and kind of like see it for what it is, and
Mhm.
then stop feeding into the machine because Activision has no incentive to change it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're going to keep getting the same. You're going to keep getting Vanguard over and over again, and Cold War over and over again. It's going to be and once in a while you get a nice gem thrown in there, like Modern Warfare's campaign was great.
Yeah.
Modern Warfare 2, however, and I'm going to say this, I think that people are going into Modern Warfare 2 with the expectation that they're going to get the same feel they got from Modern Warfare 1. They're not,
Mhm.
and the
'Cause
reason
it's
why I
supposed to
say
be a
that
different play style, right?
it's going to be focused more on the entertainment value than the realism value. And they even said this. They said that they're going to be focusing more on the entertainment than they are about the realism.
And
And that
that's
was
sad
why
because
Modern
nobody's
Warfare
asked for that.
nobody asked for that. Everybody looked at Modern Warfare and said, "Wow, this campaign was fucking fantastic."
Yeah.
So everyone's going to think that Modern Warfare 2 is going to be the same thing. It's not. It's going to be more of the flashy Michael Bay shit.
Yeah.
And then they're going to add more Warzone stuff, and that's going to be their focus. But Warzone 2 is not going to be it's going to be I think it's going to release the same way because they said that Warzone will not release with the game.
Mhm.
It's going to release after. So it'll be interesting. And they're also introducing a Tarkov style like extraction game
I'm
to it.
excited to see what they plan on doing with that, but like you said, man, I'm not gonna pre-order the game. I didn't fucking pre-order. I didn't get Vanguard. I've been kind of out of the loop. Don't get me wrong. Like I said, I'm still a Call of Duty guy. Like, dude, I keep reinstalling Black Ops 1 and Black Ops 2 and doing like the IW4X Modern Warfare 2 because
Mm-hmm.
I still like to go back and do some of that stuff because it still feels good to play that. But right now, like I'm kind of stuck on like Red Dead Roleplay and fucking Scum and Valorant. I'm trying to get into that a little bit, but and I'm still playing classic Halos, right? But I'm still, I'm a little invested. Like I do kind of want to see what they do with Modern Warfare 2, but it is upsetting because when Modern Warfare came out, I was really excited for it, but that's also when I was getting into well, no, no, no. When did Modern Warfare? No, World War II, I think, dropped when I was in BMT. I'm pretty sure. But then when I was deployed is when Modern Warfare dropped. And I was like, yo, this is the shit. And I wish I was home for it. And I remember watching the campaign. And when they did the mock-up and remake of kind of like the London bombing. And I remember watching that specific cutscene where he grabs the dude and they're trying to take like the wires out and they're trying to fucking save him and they're like, we can't. And Price
They
like
just
throws him
tossed them.
over. Dog, I'm telling you, when that happened and he died, and then you just like the way they did that cutscene, I had to pause. I paused it and I had to stand up and go like, whoo, yo, I had to like step outside and smoke a cigarette. That's how like good that campaign was. And it was funny you mentioning that because I'll never forget that. Like I'm dead ass serious. Like I had to pause, the video and be like, I'm gonna go smoke real quick, man. That shit was crazy. And then coming
Because
back,
what they did was they took influence from like real world shit that had
events.
happened in the last like 5 to 10 years, and then piled it all into one to make a story. And that was just like, oh, you're playing shit that's based off of what happened. So like you're basically in Syria
Yeah.
doing the Syrian war thing. And then you also have like, like the London bombing. That was like, that was something that actually fucking happened.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like it had a grit to it that was just like, oh man, this is different. And the game
Yeah.
felt a little different. And like
And it gave you that classic like Call of Duty feel where like back in the day, they really wanted to tackle that like this is real. This is shit that fucking happens. And I remember there was like an article talking about how they wanted them to censor some shit. And they're like, we need you to take it easy. In Modern Warfare, I think at first kind of were like, but then they were kind of like, fuck you. Fuck that. We're going to make this game the way we want to make it. And then it kind of came out exactly the way they want to. I'm sure they probably censored a couple things. I feel like there's probably some cut content somewhere in the world, right? But for me, I like that. I like that they didn't back down and they're like, fuck you. We're going to make a Call of Duty game that it teeter-totters in that realistic realm, So
everyone remembers No Russian.
Oh yeah.
And they wanted to bring that kind of feel back to No Russian, but like,
and I think they wanted to cut that from the Modern Warfare 2 remaster, right? And didn't they say, "Fuck you, we're gonna keep it in"?
some people were like, are they going to actually keep that in? And it was like, yeah, they better keep that in. That was like not only did it progress the story, it was an important mission, and it also you had the option to skip it if you wanted to. And like it brings the gravity of the situation like to the player, where it's like, hey, these guys are really horrible people. This is what they do, and they want to show. That's why I like games like Ready or Not, where it shows like, hey, everything is in sunshine and rainbows, and the hero always fucking wins.
Yeah. Tell me about that new map, man, that new little rave club, man.
Oh, the club?
Yeah, I'm like, I'm peeking around the corner and I see a pile of bodies, and I was like, you know what, man? I don't know if I want to play this anymore, man. This is
that map.
shit.
That map is wild. I was playing it before they released it. I was playing the development parts of it, and I was just like, this is gonna be wild when they launch it. And it was like all the, you got the music and the laser lights and everything, and it's just like, it's like a damn horror game in a way. But
yeah. Do you have an idea on when PvP is coming to that game, by the way? Do you?
I don't think it's ever going to.
Man, because I remember they used to have PvP, right? And then they kind of went to the single player to kind of show you the single player beta.
I don't know if Ready or Not ever had a multiplayer version like that. I think they wanted to focus more on like I think the focus right now for Ready or Not is solely on the whole like tactical coordination between you and your teammates of actually completing an objective.
I swear I've seen like Big Fry play it, dude. Because I remember looking into it and being like, yo, Ready or Not PvP, because I think PvP would be really good for that game. Because that's why I like, did you ever play, well, nobody plays anymore, but did you play 0 Hour?
I did for a little bit.
So yeah, PvP existed, but it was like 2 years ago, dude. It was like a closed alpha PvP.
Oh, they did have PvP in this.
Yeah, but it was like a closed kind of like, hey, give it a shot, see what you think. And apparently it was trash. But I'm telling you right now, if it mirrors anything like what Ready or Not plays right now, I would like it, because 0 Hour I loved, but nobody fucking plays it. So you can barely find a match, right? But then like Ground Branch, dude, you can catch me in Ground Branch lobbies all day if I
Ground Branch is fun. The only thing I don't like about Ground Branch is the AI needs a massive rework. And
but for PvP, I'm talking PvP.
Is there a PvP in Ground Branch?
What? Yeah. What are you talking about, dude? You know Nico Ortiz?
Yeah, I know Nico.
Yeah, he's got his own server on there. And I mean, it's always filled, but
I didn't know there was a PvP fucking version of Ground Branch.
I've been
playing with Campbell, and Campbell never told me that.
Yeah, dude, that's why I got it, because that's why I like 0 Hour, because I really like I appreciated what's the dumb game called? Beep, 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 and it's all arcadey now. Rainbow Six, yeah. I really appreciated Rainbow Six at first, but then it started getting to the point where I was like, I don't know, it just feels too arcadey. And then when they brought in like the idea of like 0 Hour, when I first played that, and I'm like, dude, this is badass. Like, I feel like it's real life tactical shooter. Somebody just shut the lights off. I don't have MVGs. I am shitting in my pants right now. Like, that was so cool for me. And then to find out Ground Branch was that, and you can go actually play it, and there was actual servers, and I'm like, this is super cool. And then Ready or Not. And then I'm like, oh, dude, if Ready or Not comes out with a PvP like me, I'm all in because I like it. It's creepy, but it's nice. And it's like, it just gives you this real nice SWAT sensation, but you're also annihilating the enemy team. So then you can shit talk at the end and be like, yeah, fuck you.
The thing I like about Ready or Not, what it does is that their AI is really good.
Mm-hmm.
They obviously, some of them need some rework still, like they need to make some tweaks, but like the whole like faking surrendering,
Yeah. Oh,
like,
dude.
and then I've had them a couple of times where like I surrender, and as soon as I go to arrest them, they pull out a knife and fucking kill me.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm
yeah.
just like, the knife thing they added to that was like, it was nuts because I didn't know they did that. And then I just see a guy sprinting at me, and I'm
Yeah.
like, he moves so fast and you don't. And I'm
Mhm.
just like, and he just goes like, "Crat," and I'm dead. I'm like, what the hell was that? And he killed me
Yeah.
with a knife. And I was like, that's a thing. The
Mhm.
suicide vest thing that they did, where those guys come out, oh, what is like shit.
Yeah. And I remember, like when the first game first came out, and they had to come out and publicly say, like, "Hey, man, some of these AI lines weren't supposed to make it into the real game," and you're like, "Oh yeah, yeah."
Some of them were kind of funny. I remember like one of
Yeah.
them was like saying, one of the AI when you were arresting him said that like, you look like you know my maid.
Mexican made. Yeah.
You look like my Mexican maid. It was just
He's
like,
so
what?
much. You're just like, "What are you saying?" But I mean, some of the stuff that they would say, I'd be like, "Wow, it just kind of brings this, added kind of almost realism."
Yeah.
It still could use some work. I remember actually, I wanted to try to reach out to him because I kind of want to dabble in the voice acting world just to kind of, just to give it a shot, like just to have some fun. And I remember wanting to hit him up and being like, "Hey, man, I would love to give you guys, some lines, just because I mean, I'm not." It's not like I know what the fuck I'm doing all around, but I feel like I can bring that realistic kind of like cop, kind of like Raj, just kind of feel to the game, and nothing I'm sure will ever come of it. But I feel like that'd be really cool. But I don't know. I remember playing sometimes, and he would be like, "We need to get idle," and I'm like, like it just kind of killed my immersion that I was feeling at the moment.
People have told me I should try voice acting.
Dude, do it. Why not? I mean, life's fucking short, dude. Like all you got to
Because I
do is
read like a
find.
potato, and I'm like,
Yeah, dude.
Doc gives me shit about it all the time. It's like, you can't read, and I'm like, yes, I can. I just I jumble my words sometimes because when I'm reading topics and articles and stuff for the podcast, I'm just like, I even have a whole ass clip about like how my reading sucks, and my fiance and
CEO.
Doc give me shit about it.
I
So
mean,
it's
but that's not a bad trait to have, you know what I'm saying? Because you can break that all the way down to where it's kinda like plagiarism, you know what I'm saying? If you're reading exactly word for word and you're trying to like, no, but if you kinda take it in your own and then you kinda bring your own flavor to it, you know what I'm saying? Kinda thing?
yeah, my own
Um,
flavor of I can't read.
yeah, 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 yeah. Sorry, I can't read it, so I'm gonna have to memorize
I
it and
suck
then
at reading, so you can't really like, copyright strike me for plagiarism because
yeah.
I fucked up the word "but" or
Yeah.
"response."
Yeah, there you go. That's funny. Um,
So, have you ever played Hell Let Loose?
no, but
You
I've
like
heard
World
that
War II, don't you?
yeah, I liked World of War, man. That was the
So, I
gritty,
play a
scary feeling.
lot of Hell Let Loose. So, if you're talking, a lot of people call it the true PTSD simulator because
Really?
I've had people come into my chat from Regiment watching me
Mhm.
play this, like, "Oh, this looks cool," but the audio is so insane that they're like,
Yeah.
"I can't watch this anymore."
Yeah, and I think I might have come into one of yours in the stream, like live streaming it in the chats, but
It's
I played
nuts.
Enlisted.
See, Enlisted's okay, but it's not nearly as good as Hell Let Loose. Like,
Really?
honestly, like graphically, audio, all of it
I've
is
heard
just
when
like
I
there's an intenseness about Hell Let Loose that just Enlisted does not have. I played Enlisted for like a couple hours um recently, and somebody in my chat's like, "Have you played Enlisted recently?" I'm like, "No," and then I got it. It was free and stuff. But the thing is, it's a free to play game, so it's got monetization and a grindy
yeah,
ass
ugh.
game. And when I played, dude, I went like 105-3.
Mhm.
And because I'm like, what the fuck? I was walking up with a bayonet stabbing people, and they were just all standing there looking at me. And the lobbies are filled with AI.
Yeah, well, that's that's part of the game though, right?
It is like early on, I guess. But
Yeah.
like that experience was just like, I don't like playing that at all. Like if I have to like play against just AI to rank up, I don't want to do that.
I'm gonna counteract that, dude. You wanna know what's crazy that I enjoyed about that game was there was a and it's a specific story which will lead me into why I enjoyed it, but I was running through. Wow, it's gonna be a real brief story, but I was running through the trenches. No, so like I'm fucking running, right, tearing it up, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm almost dead. Like and I leap over a wall, and I'm like, I'm gonna put some health, man. I'm by myself, freaking out, and I look over, and my squad, which is full of AI, they all hop over the wall and stand right next to me, and I was like. And I just got this sensation of like, I'm not alone. My team, my brothers. And I had this like really cool sense. I was like, yo, this is fucking badass. So like everywhere I would go on the map, I always knew I had this like AI squad that was semi actually okay. And I was like, this is actually kind of cool. It brought like this flavor. And then when I would die, I was able to spawn in as one of those AI and still kind of take care of the mission. So I was like, it brings this new flavor for me into that game. I just obviously stopped fucking playing the game, but I know exactly how you feel with probably going into the enemy's base and just being able to kill all this AI and be like, this isn't like, what am I playing? You
See,
know?
my teammate AI was a different experience because they would. I'm like wounded, and I'm like, help me, and I'm like, you're not a person, are you? And they just kind of like. I'm like, I need meds, bro. And you just run off, and I'm like, cool, this is great. I'm literally alone. Like it's me and 3 people, like real people, playing against AI and 3 other real people. And it was just like, I was like, dude, I can't do this. But like Hell Let Loose, it's just like there's a level of intenseness of Hell Let Loose, like when you have like a fucking like a tiger tank roll up, and it's just like blowing your team to pieces. There's bombing runs where it's just like it'll wipe an entire like half the team out and stuff on a point. It's enemy artillery on each side. You know, you're just sitting there and you're running. You just hear the rounds just kind of boom. It's just like it just sounds real. So it's like the audio alone adds this level of intenseness that like other games just don't have right now. And that's what I highly recommend you try it. You're gonna be beating your head against the wall for a little bit at first because the learning curve is kind of steep because it's like squad where it's like you get shot once, you're fucking done.
Oof.
But like I mean, not necessarily you get shot like in the arm or the leg and then you just lay down and patch up and stuff. But like the time to kill is so quick and like the seeing targets is so hard in places that it's like I don't know where anything is. And like, you know, you gotta all your targets kind of look like that at like a couple hundred meters away. Like the range and target size scale is pretty accurate. So like you got to really be careful and like watch, like your attention to detail has to be pretty good for it. Otherwise you're not going to see anybody and you're going to get smoked. So it's fun. I played a lot. I play with my buddies and we tend to gatekeep the sniper class and I'll be running in with like 70 kills and like no deaths and then just feel like,
shit.
But
I mean, I remember getting in a squad a little bit too. I was like, man, this is kind of cool. And I was surprised
cool.
I could even play it on my laptop. I was like, wow.
It's cool. But the only problem is the maps are so big, targets are so small. Like there's no like zoom scaling when it comes to like aiming down your sights and shit. So it's like once you aim with your weapon, like your magnification doesn't change. So it's just like you see this tiny little iron sight, and you're like, I can't see what I'm shooting at.
And you have to have a numpad to be a commander and talk specifically with your units, which is whack. Didn't know that.
I know.
I don't have a fucking numpad. The guy's like, hey man, use your numpad in order to talk to people. And I'm like, I don't have a numpad. And he's like, you don't have a numpad? And you're a commander? And I'm like, whoa.
People take those games so serious, especially squad. Man. It's just like I can't deal with it. You get these fucking keyboard milsim kids that are in there and just like we're gonna just do a role play with it. I'm like, I didn't leave the army to fucking role play the army.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Like we can do our maneuvers that way, but I don't want to talk to you that way.
Yeah.
Like I'm not on the net for real anymore. Why do I want to talk to you like I'm on the net? This is dumb. How old are you? You're 17? Shut up.
What do you know about Roger and tracking, dude?
Yeah, Roger tracking. Huh?
Roger tracking, huh? I'm heading into the enemy's base. Copy. Like, shut the fuck up. All right. Hey, perfect fucking segue, dude. Speaking of the Army, 8 years, paratrooper. Let's fucking talk about it, man. What do you got for us?
So I was a paratrooper for 4 years with the 173rd Airborne out of Italy. My MOS was a 13 Fox. I was a forward observer. So you're Air Force, right?
I'm Air Force, so I don't know anything that you're talking about.
So what do you do in the Air Force?
I'm security forces.
Oh, you're security force. Oh, you're a cop. Okay. Yeah. So do you know what a JTAC is?
Come on, dude. You're going to get ready to insult my intelligence, dude. I don't know.
You don't? Okay.
Let me know.
So Air Force JTACs, they're basically, I mean, I'm not saying that what I did was special operations guys, but like your JTACs are your version of special operations guys. So like
Okay.
what they do, they control aircraft and clear ordnance and stuff. They could like, so when they're doing airstrikes and stuff, like the JTACs control the aircraft. You have your TAC-Ps and stuff. I'm sure you know what a TAC-P is.
Yeah.
So as a forward observer, that I was essentially the version of that for the Army.
Okay.
So like basically what I did was I did air artillery support, air support, all that stuff, and I controlled aircraft. I gave target locations for artillery and mortars. So I was the guy. And we would be like small man squads attached to a platoon, but we would just be, forward observers. What they do is they go ahead of the friendly element, scout targets, give targeting data, control the aircraft. We work hand in hand with the JTACs. So the JTACs, we pass them target data. They hand us over the aircraft. We talk to the aircraft, be it F-16s, A-10s, and basically give them targeting data, lays the bombs for them.
Yeah.
And all that stuff.
So you play squad and you're like, shut up.
Exactly.
You don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny.
So I was a joint fires observer. So the difference between a normal 13 Fox FO and a JFO is that like normal FOs deal with artillery and mortars. JFOs deal mostly with aircraft. So like I'll basically be on the net with like whatever aircraft it is and giving them target location, talk them onto a target, clear their bombs, drop the bombs or the gun run, whatever they're doing, and then just kind of give a BDA after that. Okay. So I did that when I was in Italy. I missed the Afghanistan deployment by fucking one rotation. I got there in January of 2013, and they were still in Afghanistan when I got there, and they got back 3 months later, and the command team said that was the last one. So I was like, oh fuck, I missed it.
Yeah.
And everybody that was there was like they PCS from like other units to go here because they're like, oh, the next Afghanistan deployment for the 173rd is, coming up because at the time the 173rd was the most deployed unit to Afghanistan. And when I got there, that was over with. Our new mission was European contingency. So when Syria first kicked off and Assad gassed his people for the first time, like we actually were on what we called ASERF, which is Army Contingency Response Force. And they would call us like in the middle of the night, be like, go to the arms room, withdraw weapons. Like we had to be on standby at any time to jump anywhere. So it was like shit like that. And so Syria almost happened for us. We actually had buses. We were on the buses getting ready to go to Aviano Air Base in Italy to load the C-130s. And they were talking about jumping us into Syria. And then Obama pulled up the warships, and then Assad said, okay, I won't do it again. And that stopped. So that, that whole thing kind of it was just a constant standby, get ready to go, get on the way to go, stop on the way there.
Yeah. And you had stated, no, keep going. Sorry.
Well, I was going to get into the Ukraine thing.
Okay. Yeah. That's why I was going to ask you. You stated that you spent most of your career kind of in Europe when Ukraine started. And for people that are unknowledgeable, like myself, can you kind of talk about that whole Ukraine situation, how it started and kind of what your job looked like?
Back in like 2014, when Russia took Crimea. So this is back when there's like a civil unrest within Ukraine. There was kind of like a civil war going on. The government was extremely corrupt. There was like the pro-Russian separatists, which were people that were for Russia coming in to take Ukraine. And then the Ukrainians that didn't want it to happen, they were fighting over on the east side of Ukraine. So when Russia was coming in, I'll never forget. It was Easter of 2014. It was like the Easter weekend. They called us all in that Saturday before Easter Sunday, and then gave us a briefing saying that like, we're going to Eastern Europe to deter Russia. So Putin was talking about invading Ukraine back in 2014. And the whole staging thing before he finally did it had been ramping up since then. So like for us, like the guys that were over there back in 2014, 2015, 2016, and so on, we knew this was coming. We just didn't know when. And all the other Baltic states were kind of shitting their pants because they're like, well, if they go to Ukraine, we're next. So the entire 173rd split up between Ukraine, Romania, Slovakia, all the other Baltic countries out there, Latvia, Lithuania, and we were training their guys for just in case. But Ukraine was a little bit different because when we went, like, we were rotating around Ukraine like we would a field rotation.
Mm-hmm.
So we would go there for a month or two, come back for like a few months, then go back for a month or two and come back for a few months. So, but they were also rotating everybody within the brigade. So like
Mm-hmm.
each company went at a different time. So like the 1 month that I did go, we were only there for like a month, but the whole mission was to train the Ukrainians in the West
Mm-hmm.
and send them off east to fight the pro-Russian separatists. So like Russia wasn't full-scaled invaded into Ukraine yet, but there was conflict on the east side because the pro-Russian separatists were being seen to be actual Russian troops that were disguised as separatists. So it was like a proxy war.
Okay.
And so we would train these guys, send them out east, and then train more guys and send them out east. So it's like basically we were just training like another, training their military to do this. So we were, and it was kind of shitty for us because we were over there thinking like, this could literally pop off at any moment and we will be here when this happens.
Damn. Yeah.
So when they pulled everybody out of Ukraine officially, that's when he invaded because he knew we weren't there anymore.
Of course.
So yeah, that whole thing with Ukraine, it was a fun experience. I mean, it kind of sucked because it was like being in the field, except you were actively like on the opposite side of a war zone, but you weren't considered deployed. So it was just like, okay, this like if we're constantly in the Baltics doing this shit to deter the Russian forces from invading their country, like why don't we just stay out here for a long period of time and then call it a deployment? Like and the army was like, no. So yeah, all that shit, and just like most of my time was spent in Italy and in Eastern Europe, just doing shit like that. So I didn't get to do too many cool things, unfortunately. So, but that was the extent of my European time. And then after I got out, I did 4 years National Guard, which I partially regret. I only partially regret it because like it was so stupid how they roped me into doing it too, because it was a year. I spent a year out and I was like, you know what? I was going through my shit. I was trying to find the title to my motorcycle because I was trying to register it. And then I found all of my old maps from like Eastern Europe and like all my other, like all my targeting data and shit that I kept on my map, on my little fucking maps and stuff and my notebooks. And I was like, dude, I really miss doing that kind of shit.
Yeah.
Thinking that I could go do it again. And I was so fucking wrong. I go to my first, I go to talk to my National Guard recruiter and I trusted him because he also was 173rd and he got out on the 173rd a year before I got in there. So he understood the op tempo that I was in and could really kind of transition me into the National Guard life. And he's like, hey man, I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to be very different from what you're used to.
Yeah.
So prepare yourself for that. But he couldn't tell me what the unit was that I was going to. He's like, I don't really know what they do. And it was a maneuver enhancement brigade close by. And they sent me over there. And basically all I was doing was motor pool shit for like a year. And I was like, I fucking hate it here.
Yeah.
I'm talking, you have sergeant majors that have never deployed. You have commanders that have never deployed. You have like 95% of the brigade over there had never deployed anywhere. And they were doing rotations to Ukraine from this unit. Yeah. So I was like, I want to go back to Ukraine. And they had just gotten back from Ukraine. So we weren't up to go back to Ukraine for like another year or so. And I'm like, I can't be in this unit for this long. I will lose my mind. It was so bad. Like going from what I was doing to now just sitting inside of an office doing motor pool shit, like shortage annexes all fucking day for the whole weekend, every single month. Yeah. Hey, we're gonna break out the drash tent, put it up, look at it, put it back. Next month, do the same thing. It was so stupid. And then the one thing that I really hated was that I had an E8 over me who was he was a deployment dodger. Guy had been in the Army for 17 years. At the time,
dodged all of them, huh?
And he never went overseas. He never did anything.
In fact, so he didn't dodge him on purpose. He just didn't fucking.
He did dodge him on purpose.
Oh,
so what he was doing was whenever the unit was up for deployment, he would put a transfer into another unit.
It's so weird. And that's like the idea of the military is to be deployable, like to be readily deployable at all times.
And the worst thing was he didn't know anything about his job. I had to tell him things and he told me I was wrong. Like he tried telling me that Predator drones don't have ordnance. And I was like, what? He was like, Predator drones don't have any ordnance. I'm like, yes, they do. They have AGM-114 Hellfire missiles, and I'm like, this was my job for
I just did
my
this a year
entire
ago.
active career to know assets that like what ordnance my assets have, and Predator drones have ordnance.
Yeah.
And he's like, nope, they don't. You're wrong. And this dude's an E8 Master Sergeant. And I'm just like, and I even pulled it up. I even opened up my old book and I was like, let's look here. And I looked, Predator drone has this, and I found out it actually had other things I didn't know it did. And I'm like, oh, it can do this and this and this too. And he's just like, that's wrong. I'm like, this is the official fucking book. What do you mean? And it was that guy, and he was just like, he would do is he would transfer to another unit in another state that wasn't deploying, and then sit in paperwork limbo until that cycle was up. Because if they ended up not deploying, he would cancel his paperwork. But if they did, he would finish his paperwork and go to the next unit.
Nice.
So then I transferred to another unit, which was all forward observers. Because when I got to this unit, it was all MPs. It was MPs, it was engineers, and then there was a fire cell, which included me, an electronics warfare guy, a HIMARS rocket artillery guy, and then that was it.
Dude, that sounds like the place to be.
No, it was not the place to be. No, dude.
I feel like it's just a bunch of like-minded people. You guys just
all the MPs shit. There didn't know shit. I remember going like when North Korea, before the Olympics, when North Korea was talking about nuking, they sent us to Fort Riley, Kansas to do this fucking training op. And we were doing like actual like scenarios of like what to do with North Korea.
Yeah.
And the MPs were talking about using, you know what a Raven is?
Yeah, I do.
They were talking about using Ravens as unmanned aerial support. And I was just like, wait, you're going to engage enemy with a Raven? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, do you know what a Raven is? Like, yeah,
it's goal is to protect the fucking.
It's an observational drone. That's all it is. It's a fucking paper airplane that you throw, and all it does is look at things. And they're like saying, yeah, we're gonna use air support we're gonna use our Raven for air support. I'm like, you're gonna use your Raven for air support, huh? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, do you know? I'm like, what kind of weapons does a Raven have? They're like, well, I don't know, but it's a UAV. And I was just like, have you ever seen a Raven before? And they're like, no. I'm like, it's a fucking paper airplane with a camera.
Oh, so you're talking about the actual okay. I thought you were talking about like Ravens in the Air Force. I was like,
no, I'm talking about like Raven drones. So there's like, so a Raven drone is like, you put it in a Peltor tough box, and it's basically like a big paper airplane that you throw handheld to like launch it. And all it does is look at an area, and the range on it isn't really that good. And the MPs in this unit were talking about using Ravens as an air asset.
Dude, you remember in Black Ops 2, you can throw the little fucking plane and it would kill somebody? That makes me think like that's what the MPs are thinking. They're like, yeah, bro, we'll just
that's what they thought it was. They thought a Raven drone was like, you know, a use like an actual like weapon that they could, or a drone with weapons on it that they could use for support. And I had explained to them, and I'm like, that's not what that is. You know that, right? And you're talking about like they're talking about using assets. They have no idea what they are.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to ever be with these fucking dudes downrange. Like I could not. These like we'll die. We'll all die. And then like the Fulberg colonel was talking about using AC-130s in the middle of the day. And I was like, anybody that knows how an AC-130 works, they don't operate during the day unless it's an absolute emergency and they're the closest asset and they're actively doing something. AC-130s, they have to fly low, they have to fly slow, because that was another thing that JFOs had to deal with. We had to work with AC-130s. So like AC-130s, they fly low, they fly slow, they fly in a racetrack pattern when they're engaging a target, and they only operate at night and low light situations because they are a massive target themselves. They can get shot down. That's a very expensive piece of equipment. And it's got there's a lot of shit on them that, like, you know, when I was in JFO school, they wouldn't even tell other people about, because when I went to JFO school, it was in Germany, and we had multinational, like, you know, military guy. Like we had Germans, we had what was it? It was Germans, Czechs. Like we were all in the same school, but they had to separate us on when it came to discussing one of the AC-130s because it has ordnance that are classified. So like they're not going to risk losing that asset. And there's only a certain number of AC-130s in the military. They're not going to risk losing an asset in the middle of the fucking day. And they didn't understand this. So I'm like, I'm with a unit that doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about. So, but that's the military though. You know, you get a lot of leadership that thinks they know things better than others. I mean, hell, in my active unit, the reason why I got out was because my command team was very they had no regard for soldier, like for our own like personal safety. Like they were willing to risk it all. I mean, our sergeant major talked about constantly how many guys he lost in Afghanistan. I'm like, this isn't a bragging thing, dude.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Like our full bird, not our full bird, but our battalion commander, he ended up getting a general order of reprimand.
Damn.
Because they were taking TDY and going on vacation with it.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing that finally prompted them to hand him his Gomar was when we were in Poland doing a jump. We had an E7 get like seriously injured, like career-ending injury on a jump because he was doing what was called a wing exchange. And for the airborne community, you know what I'm talking about. But for those that are legs, like yourself, that don't jump out of planes, basically what it is, what a wing exchange is, you jump with foreign nationals parachute and use their aircraft and their jump masters, and you get their wings.
Oh, that's fucking sweet. Dude.
I have Greek wings, so
dude, that's fucking so cool.
I know, like that, like all paratroopers' goal is to collect as many foreign wings as possible. So like we try to do as many foreign jumps for a wing exchange. They get our wings, we get their wings. So
that's like the equivalent of me collecting fucking Call of Duty prestigious, baby.
Except for real.
But no, dude, I've never heard that before, and that's like the coolest fucking thing.
Yeah,
I think I've heard in a long time.
It's super cool because like you're in the aircraft with another country's guys, and then their jump masters, their aircraft, their parachute, and then you get their wings for it, and you just collect all these wings. So you got Italian jump, like I know a lot of guys that have Italian jump wings. Like we do it in Normandy. We reenact Normandy's jump every year. I didn't get to go on this because they're so limited on seats, and units from all over the army go do this, including other countries. They just reenact the Normandy jump. They jump into Normandy and then go right into Normandy, and then it's a party. So it's like every airborne, it's like every paratrooper's fucking dream is to do the Normandy jump. But so we were doing a jump in Poland, and this guy, our battalion commander, didn't have army approval to do it because you kind of need to pass that up the chain of command and get it approved.
Makes sense.
So they went to the parachute harnessing area, got all rigged up, and they were on their way to the aircrafts on the buses. The colonel got a phone call from a 2-star at the Pentagon saying like, "Hey, Colonel so-and-so, you don't have army approval for this jump. You got to scratch it." And he's like, "Well, we're already rigged up, sir. We can't really scratch the jump right now." He's like, "Yeah, but you don't have approval. You have to scratch this jump." And he's like, "I can't hear you, sir. Like, we're bad reception." He hung up on the guy. And I know this because one of my close buddies was his RTO and working directly with him. And he handed the phone to the RTO and said, "Fuck that guy," and went through with the jump anyway.
Woo.
Well, there's a platoon sergeant in E7 who shattered his pelvis on that jump. And what happened was, like, when you have 2 parachutes, right? When there's a parachute under you, it steals the air of the one above it. So it closes the chute, and the whole like point that you're supposed to do when that happens is run off the other canopy below you and then jump off the side of it, and your chute should open back up. What he didn't know is that the air was being taken from his chute about 100 something feet before the ground. So that dude below him was landing when he was doing this, so he was actively running off the parachute and hit the ground. So his parachute had no air, and he was like not in the fucking landing. He was not in a proper parachute landing fall position, shattered his pelvis, ended his career. And then this dude from the Pentagon came to Italy to personally hand him his Gomar.
God damn.
Because they did an investigation and found they were stealing TDY and going to Hawaii and on all these other vacations on the government's dime. Yeah.
It was fucking crazy.
It was shit like that, and like, like dudes, like, because they were like favoring. And the other thing I will say, to all the buddies out there that I have that are Rangers, these guys make me hate fucking Rangers because the whole command team were Rangers. Ranger tabbed, Ranger scrolled, guys from Ranger Bat that were in charge of everything, trying to make us do Ranger shit without making us Rangers.
Fuck that, dude.
They had this like frat boy mentality when they came to it. They were just like, they were looking out for their other Ranger buddies. They were looking out for other jump masters, and everyone else can go fuck themselves. And then when we were in Poland, they would go off, and like the command team would go off every night and fucking party, but everybody else couldn't go out at all. And then one night they let guys go out that said 2 drink minimum. And of course, people broke it, but nobody got in trouble. That was the other thing. No one got in trouble. There's no incident. Everybody came back before curfew. Everybody was up and ready to go for work the next day, but somebody told on them, and they gave field grade Article 15s to everybody that was below E6 and below. So they busted. There was like 30 guys on extra duty. They busted rank down on anybody that was an E6 and below from that group. They put E7s on extra duty. On like the restriction and the half pay and shit for a month. And meanwhile, these guys are off doing the same exact thing, but they punished everybody else to make an example out of them. Said, do as I say, not as I do type thing.
Yeah.
And it was just like everybody fucking each other. And it was like it's shit like that makes people not stay in.
Yeah, especially talk about the definition of blanket punishment, dude. It just doesn't even fucking benefit anybody.
No, it doesn't. It sucks because it was just like it put a bad taste in everybody's mouth. Like my best friend, his platoon sergeant was sleeping with his wife, and like he ended up getting punished for it. They sent him to the barracks. His wife stayed in the house with their kid, was doing her own thing, and the E7 never got in trouble for it.
God, dude.
And the only reason why his wife got kicked out of Italy is because she was stealing drugs, like prescription drugs, from the other spouses. And they told him the Italian government's like, you're out. The Italian
people wonder why people get in fights, man. Like that's enough to make any sane man go fucking crazy.
Well, and then the other thing, because this guy was Ranger tabbed and a jump master, they had this dude acting as like rear D command sergeant major while everybody was off in the Baltics. So like they were fucking over my buddy and like basically like hooking up the other guy that was sleeping with his wife.
Cool, dude.
And it was like it's shit like that. That's just like, and then my buddy's like, I'm out. I'm fucking retiring. Like I don't want to do this shit anymore. It was a rough time. There was a lot of good times. There's a lot of bad times, you know, as they say, it was the best of times and it was the worst of times. I'm sure many people have stories like this. I mean, like the brigade morale was at an all-time low because we were constantly doing these rotations to the Baltics. No free time, wasn't allowed to travel, weren't allowed to drink, couldn't do this. We were constantly training. And we had a heroin problem in our unit.
Fucking
that one. You want to know how they figured that one out? We get back from Ukraine, right? We weren't back for more than fucking 8 hours. Two guys come up to their squad leader's door in the barracks and said, we're overdosing. And he's like, on what? And the kid's like, on heroin. So they run over to this dude. Him and his roommate are ODing. They saved them both. And it prompted an investigation, and the Italians came in with their drug dogs and stuff. They come to find out 2nd Battalion was they caught 20-something dudes with heroin. There was a drug ring. These guys in the other battalion were fucking buying heroin and selling it to other soldiers. So like we had an internal heroin ring of dudes just buying heroin. Dudes were doing coke and heroin like all the time, and like the other unit was like selling it to them.
What the fuck, dude?
Yeah. So we had to actually have like every day was like a health and welfare check inspection. Like we had Sergeant Major going through our barracks every morning at like 5 a.m, like because like they were looking for drugs and they were looking for contraband and shit like that. 100% piss test every day for about a month. So everybody like we had to cut PT short so we can take a piss test. Like because there would be like every company had to do it, and every company's like a couple hundred guys, like a couple hundred dudes. And every single one of us had to get a piss test every morning. So it was like that because these dudes were doing heroin.
And let alone so ass backwards. Like the whole point of the fucking military is 1 PT, 2 readily deployable.
Oh, dude.
And we're going to cut your PT short.
And it was rough because when we were doing rotations to the Baltics, our chow hall was closed on certain days. So we had no way to eat. So our chow hall was only open for breakfast and dinner.
The answer's heroin, dude. You eat heroin.
Bro. It was bad because like the chow hall was closed. The chow hall got shut down because it had a roach problem. So it was shut down for several months. And then when it reopened and we were going to the Baltics, they opened it Monday through Friday for breakfast and dinner, and then closed on the weekends. So you had all these dudes that had no chow. They're like, how are you supposed to eat? And their answer to that at first was to give us hot A's. So like the fucking field tent where they would hand you out the fucking hot meals, they would hand you out like when you're deployed or in the field.
Yeah.
That's what we were eating because the chow hall ran out of food.
God damn.
So we were like, can we get separate rations to go to the grocery store and buy food? And they said no. So they were just like making, and then when that ran out, they gave us 3 MREs a day. So they were telling us to eat MREs every day, and we're on garrison. We're not even in the field or deployed.
Yeah, wow.
We're on base. And so when we were telling like this MRE thing is not sustainable, we can't be doing this. So guys were obviously going to like the PX and shit and buying like, you know, junk food and like whatever they can. And they said, well, you know, there's a bus that will shuttle you to the other base, which is like 20 minutes away to eat chow. But in order to do that, you had to be on the bus like at a certain time. So you had to cut PT short.
Yeah.
So you were back. And by the time you were back, you had to change, get ready for work. And by the time that you started the duty day, it was time for lunch. Get back on the bus, go to lunch, come back, a couple hours of the duty day, get back on the bus, go to dinner, come back. And it was just like, dude, it was shit like that. It was just like, I can't do this anymore.
That's no way to fucking live either. That's fucking trash, man.
No, it's not. It was awful. But my National Guard unit, when I got out, like the guys that I went to when I transferred, all the FO guys, that was a good time. That was a really fun time. I had a lot of fun experiences, like going to the field. We went to the field every month, and it was just, you know, it was an awesome time. I kind of miss those guys a lot. Like they would go to Michigan for AC 130 stuff, and then, you know, it was just I that's the one thing that I do miss about the Guard. But other than that, I don't miss that shit at all. Fuck no.
Yeah, we had some Army cats in on my deployment. Kind of fucking retarded, but I'm gonna briefly talk about that in a second. But I'm gonna cut to the restroom. I don't know if you got to use the restroom or not, and then pour some more coffee because I'm out and I want to drink.
I need to do the same thing.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Yeah, man. On our deployment, we had an Army officer, and she thought it was smart to obviously drink past the limit, but she was also drinking with airmen. And I mean like airmen, like below NCO airmen.
Fraternization, the best.
Let's go, baby. Yeah, and she got insanely drunk and allegedly, right? Because I wasn't there to see it, but I'm 99.9% sure that this is exactly what happened. But she got kicked out of there and sent right the fuck back home. But got insanely fucking drunk, took one of our razors and decided to do, they call it the cop shop outside of our little cop tent that we had. She decided to do donuts in that little area where we had our cop shop, you would call it, right? And yeah, they came out and they're like, what the fuck are you doing? And she's like, woo! And they're like, okay,
I got a DUI, baby.
Yeah, man. And yeah, I don't know everything that came from that scenario, but I do know it was a very interesting time.
We had a brigade commander, full bird colonel, get arrested for a DUI right outside of base because he got pulled over by the MPs and fought them.
Nice. That's dude. If you're gonna go out, go out. Like,
dude, like the airborne community is such a different community because, like, back in the day, they used to, you know what they used to do to the MPs? Is to kidnap them.
Hey.
So what they would do is they would kidnap them, like tie them up with like fucking 100-mile-an-hour tape, field strip their weapons, throw it on top of the barracks, and then like call the station, be like, come get your boy.
Yeah. That's fucking hilarious.
Fucking reckless abandon. Like their first sergeant would call like the other first sergeant, the infantry first sergeant, and be like, hey, we kind of need our, like, hey, we're gonna come get our guy. Like, hey, come get him. Fuck it. Like, dude, I don't give a shit. Like, you can come get him. I'm not bringing him to you.
Mm-hmm.
What's the wildest thing that happened when you, like, in your active? What's the wildest thing that happened at your unit or any unit you've been in your career?
Oh man, I haven't had anything like too. I mean, that was a portion of it, just because our airmen were kind of involved with that, I guess. But nothing too crazy, man. I've only been in for about 4.5, almost 5 years. So,
and you have no crazy stories, and you're a fucking like cop, and you don't have any like wild stories of shit that's happened on base.
Well, so my first base was Minot, North Dakota, man. So I was kind of in the missile field, just kind of sitting in staring fences for 12 hours a day. Yeah. My
fiance's dad, he was an A-10 loader. They were in Minot for a little bit.
Oh shit. Okay, there you go. Minot, it's not bad too. It's like its own little breed, and that's kind of what I liked about it. What is going on here? We had a cat smoke weed at one of the facilities, and I'm sure you probably may have heard about that. That blew up. I mean, because Minot's consistently in the news, man. We can't stay out of the fucking
for smoking weed.
Yeah, but he was at the nuke facility. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And
Okay.
that's where the whole world started. Well, not the whole world, but the majority of folks were like, oh, so that's what our protectors of our nuclear weapons were doing. And it's like, if you actually go
It's
there
just
and
me.
provide
Come on.
security, it's not, yeah. It's not that big of a deal when like you are there working with it. It's like, it's not like that. It's not like he's right there touching the nuclear weapon and saying, yeah, this is my baby. Like, that's not how it works, right?
People
Obviously,
have a
we know that.
misunderstanding of how nuclear weapons work when it
Yeah.
comes to launching them, because they think that like
Mhm.
one guy has the power to launch all of it when it's not the case at all.
Yeah. No, you can't even read. Yeah. It fucking ridiculous. But, eh,
I could tell you about one of my fucking one of our FOs when I was in Italy.
mhm.
So you bringing up smoking weed, right? So this fucking dumbass, right? This kid was already like the biggest shitbag I've ever seen in my entire military career.
Mhm.
He didn't give a fuck about nothing. He came. One of the rules when you go overseas, when you get to your first unit, is that you are pretty much 30 days base restriction where you can't go out to the bars and stuff, especially in
Mhm.
Europe, because this is also during the time where ISIS was really prominent, and ISIS
Mhm.
was literally right outside where we were at. Like we were
Mhm.
no longer allowed to ruck off base or do runs off base anymore. And our
Damn, yeah.
base is really tiny. It's like not even like a 3 mile radius. It's so
Mhm.
small. You can walk from one end to the other. And so we did all of our running PT and our rucks off base. Well, they told us we couldn't do it anymore because ISIS had literally gotten into Vicenza, Italy, and we're there.
Mhm.
So like the attack, like assaults on fucking US soldiers was pretty high. Like you had people like you had the Moroccans, they would like beat dudes, drug you, they would drug you and rob you.
Yeah.
And so they tell you you can't go off base for 30 days because you're a new private. Like new privates are not really known for being responsible. And what does this kid do when he gets there? He goes off, blows all of his money on hookers and at the bar, and then he contracted an STD during
Let's
that.
go.
Got the clap like the first weekend he was there. And then we were talking to him. He's like, my dad's loaded. He paid me 10 grand to just join the army and stuff. And he said that if I could join the army, pass boot and pass airborne school and get to my first unit, he'd give me like 10 grand. I'm like, what?
The
So this
fuck?
kid, he was a huge shitbag. He's like, when I fight, man, I get red, I get angry, and like nothing could stop me. I'm like, okay, cool. So he wanted out so bad, and he was doing everything in his power to get out. And but the thing is,
Mhm.
with retention being so low, the military kind of really tries to not kick you out unless you
Mhm.
murder somebody. Which
Yeah,
there
yeah.
was a guy that really tried to murder somebody, and we'll get into that in a minute.
Yeah, yeah.
So this kid, he's being irresponsible, disrespecting NCOs. You couldn't do anything. You couldn't punish him. He had JAG on his side to where you
Mm.
couldn't do anything. And this dude was pissing hot for coke, for weed, for all of it. He didn't care. So, and one of my close buddies was his squad leader. And I felt so bad for him. I'm like, dude, how do you put up with this dude? He's like, I want to fucking kill myself. I hate coming to work every single day and having to deal with this
Yeah.
dumbass. Like he's irresponsible. He doesn't listen. He puts other people in danger because during training operations, like we were putting up large antennas, the OE254, and he's like, want to see a trick? And he unhooks it and lets it topple down. This is like a couple 100-pound radio antenna that
Mhm.
almost landed on a bunch of guys.
Goddamn.
And he was being reckless and didn't give a fuck. And he could not get processed out. They would not kick him out. The brigade was like, no, we need the numbers, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
The one thing that finally got him kicked out was because they had to put what they do is when you piss hot for a drug, they send you to the alcohol and substance abuse program
Yeah.
and give you a chance. I
Mm.
put heavy quotes on the chance,
Yeah.
which happens to be on the other base where brigade is. Our
Yeah.
base, there's two bases. There's Del Din and Caserma, Italy. And First Battalion and some of AFRICOM and USAREC are all on our base. Well,
Mhm.
brigade and Second Battalion and all the engineer battalions are all on the other base. But so is the alcohol substance abuse program. It's
Mhm.
on the other base. So he goes to the other base and he goes right up to the brigade headquarters, right
Mhm.
outside the door, and lights up a fucking joint and starts smoking a joint right at brigade headquarters as the brigade commander's walking up. And he's like, "What's up, sir?" And he's like, "You smoking weed?" And he's like, "Fuck yeah." And then it was that moment. He's like, "Get him out now."
Oh, wow.
And then we so on that same base, because I don't know how some of these guys make it through fucking MEPS. I really don't.
Yeah.
We had another guy that came and he tried to murder a hooker.
Fuck yeah.
And so what happened was, in Europe, you can purchase a prostitute and it's completely legal. But if you refuse to pay the prostitute, it's a crime. So what he did was he picked up a chick from a brothel and refused to, after he was done, he refused to pay and then beat her half to death and left her in a field to die. And the thing was, she was pregnant and lost the baby.
Oh,
and he and all of his genius kept her purse and her underwear in his car. So like when she obviously survived and reported it, they're like, who was it? So she was able to identify him, and when he denied it, they inspected his vehicle and found her purse, her underwear. So he was put on like lockdown in the barracks. Well, this dude escapes through a window because like the Carbonari, the Italian like government, the Italian cops, which basically the military, they come through every twice a day to check on him. When they checked that he had actually gotten out of his window, he like made like a rope out of his sheets, got out, went back to the brothel to finish the job, and all the prostitutes at the brothel beat the shit out of him.
Oh God, let's go.
And then the Italians were like, okay, so he obviously can't be locked down on base. We're putting him in jail. By the way, there is a jail on the other side of the base. Like we have a soccer field and a fence, and on the other side of that fence is a prison, like the local prison.
Nice.
They sent him there, and because everybody in Italy in that region knows who he is, they were beating the shit out of him in prison. They were jerking it off in his food. They were throwing poop at him in his cell, and they had to transfer him to another region. So this dude is probably still locked up because he got charged with attempted murder. He actually did get charged with murder for killing the baby.
Yeah.
And he's over there in a jail cell in Padova. So he's not having a good time.
Jerking off in his food, bro.
Oh, dude, it was rough in that camp, dude. It was rough.
Man. Yeah, no, I don't really have any crazy stories, man. My time's been relatively easy. And I mean, going to a place like mine, you don't really deploy out of there, but I ended up getting pulled for a deployment. And it was really neat. I mean, the funniest thing that I could say, and I think they made me do it for a joke, because obviously me being like A1C, getting ready to put on senior airman, I'm like, I filled out a statement for a dude taking a shit. And it was fucking hilarious. And I had to find a way to like professionally state that this man was watching us while taking a shit. I was like, an individual proceeded to come over the hill, defecate while looking at our operation, because we had I think we had like our third dog sit for that week. And for some reason, things got lost in translation. So we ended up pushing outside the installation because it was at the VSA. So we pushed outside the installation, provided 360-degree security right outside of the fence. And for this is kind of one of the moments where it kind of just hit me. It's not like anything real happened, but it's just kind of one of those like, treat that shit like it's real, even when it's in training kind of thing. Because my sector of fire was literally the whole fucking village. So first of all, wrong, dude. Do you know how many windows are in a fucking village? You know what I'm saying? So my whole sector's just staring at all these windows like, dog, like at any moment, if somebody really just didn't give a shit, they could be like, yeah, I'm just going to that airman right there. Right.
Yeah.
But I'm like looking, and I look to the right and I see this dude come over the fucking hill, and he sits there, and I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, hey, toss me the binoculars real quick. And I take it and I look, and I just watch a dude just, and then run. And
this is deployment?
This is Africa. I was in
Africa.
Yeah.
I mean, it could always be worse. You could be watching dudes fuck sheep in the raid camera.
Yeah, one of my cousin was in the army, and he's got video stories, and yeah, man, he's told me about that.
It's a whole nother world out there, man.
Yeah, I'm sure it is, man.
It's a whole nother world. I
But
mean,
they had
granted,
me fill a
yes, I
statement
know
out
I
for it.
wasn't there, so I don't know. I only know from what I was told. It was pretty bad when I was active. Like I was in that unit for so long, and
Yeah.
because I got there before they came back from deployment, the guys that were on that deployment thought I was on that deployment with them. So they're like telling stories, and they're like, "You remember that, right, Higgins?" And I was like, "I wasn't there." They're like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you were? I was like, "No, I wasn't there.
Yeah.
I got here before you guys got back." And they're like, "You didn't deploy with us? What the fuck?" And I'm like, my lack of deployments was not for lack of trying. I chased that shit like a crackhead. I was looking for that rock, and I couldn't get it. But yeah, like the stories that you hear from those places is wild. Like they wipe with the fucking rocks and shit.
Yeah, he started telling me, my cousin started telling me about some of that stuff, and it was just the funniest thing. I was actually going to mention him earlier too, because the first thing he ever told me prior to actually joining, he was like, "Look, man, there's this thing called toxic leadership." And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he started telling me about just kind of it was more geared towards the army, but he was like, "It's still a thing in the air. It's in every fucking branch, right?" But he's like, "You're seeing all these cats that joined way after 9/11 that they had no business joining." Honestly, that was his light way of putting it. It was the people who joined for no fucking reason, didn't give a shit about anything, and just kind of found their way into the military and just, don't care about anything. And he's like, a lot of these people are now put in leadership positions, and you're seeing a lot of the people who joined after 9/11 for that reason and really wanted to fight and do the job and take care of their folks. They're now starting to get, they're getting out, right? They're retiring out, and you're finding these people in leadership positions that don't deserve to be in those positions, and they have to be in that position. So now you have this thing called toxic leadership. Exactly, right? And
The
that's
good
what he
guys
tried to
never
really drill in my
say.
head.
The good guys never say. My guardian was begging me to stay, and I was like, I don't want to do it anymore, man.
Well, that's one of the things where, like, I'm coming up on the end of my 6-year enlistment, and I really got to start thinking about kind of what I want to do. And one of the reasons I wanted to leave is because I'm seeing all these things, and I'm like, this is retarded, man. It just shouldn't fucking be like this. But at the same time, if everybody left for the reason that I want to leave, what is going to happen? You know what I'm saying? So that's kind of the boat that I'm in right now. But I'm still so, like, I don't know. I'm still kind of floating, trying to figure out where I want to go.
The future is bleak, especially because the military is being pulled out of an operational environment and now going towards garrison. To the point where now, when the new operational environment comes, all the experienced guys are going to be gone.
Yeah.
And the ones that no one likes are going to be in charge, and it's just going to be a shit show. So that was like one thing I identified early on was just like, there's no more wars happening anymore for now. And the people that are moving up and staying in are people that shouldn't. And the good guys are all getting the fuck out. And I did not want to deploy with the certain people that I was deploying with. I would have been deploying with because I didn't trust my leadership.
Yeah.
Like me as an FO, for example, like I was recognizing this in training operations whenever it was like, I am the subject matter expert of doing what I'm doing. But there are some times where I need the command to approve my mission, despite what I say. And they just won't, because they're like, there's too many unknowns. Like there's one unknown and you could easily confirm it, but you just don't. And like, it's just like your hands are tied a lot. And then you're at the mercy of somebody's orders.
Yeah.
And in an actual combat scenario or an operational environment where you have to rely on your expertise to keep you and other people alive, but you're also like, your hands are tied because you need someone to say yes on a certain thing, and it needs to be done. But it can't be done because, hey, it's too close and I don't feel comfortable with it. And like, no matter how many checks and balances you do, like until that guy says yes, you can't do it. And then catastrophe happens. It's like that all over the place. So that's one of the reasons.
When it's like, I know one of the big conversations too that's coming up every now and then is the fact that like people talk about like it's not good, it's super healthy, but it's not super bad when like we're not at war, but when we're essentially fighting, with other folks, because when we're not, what are we doing? We're fighting with ourselves, and it's internally just a fucking massive shit show. You know what I'm saying?
I've noticed this, and it's one of the hardest things to recognize, and it's something that I'll point out, and that is that you will learn, especially when you get out, that the most toxic group of people are our own people. The veteran community tends to be pretty toxic, and they get at each other for all these dumb things. And it's like, I don't know if it could be either envy or whatever, or like someone wants to like look at your experience compared to their experience, and then be like, and like basically try to invalidate another person's experience because they had it harder than you did, or they went through more shit than you did, but they don't recognize the fact that like, hey, we all kind of did, we were in there to do the same thing, just people had different paths than other people. And you get that a lot in every and the entire veteran community. You see it at like, you know, the VFW, you can see it in like within people that you meet like in other environments. But it's just like it's the one thing that I'm trying to get at with this is that like, stop doing that.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, the only people that are looking out for the veteran community is the veteran community. Because the VA, we all know the VA sucks. Depends on where you go, it's worse than others. And the government doesn't give a shit about us. So I mean, you got to look right now, like just with the thing they passed with they voted against for the burn pit thing. Of like actually getting veterans care and counting the burn pit stuff towards like, you know, disability and stuff. I'm sure some VAs actually will like process that properly to get you the care that you need. But on the grand scheme of it, you know, we got politicians that don't ever have to fucking do anything, and they vote against certain things. Like the government and the VA is not looking out for our best interests in a lot of cases, especially in mental health. Like I'm sure you talked with Doc about this, because he worked in mental health over here in Great Lakes.
Yep.
And the mental health care system within the VA is fucking atrocious. I got lucky because I got a social worker that is like the only social worker at my VA that actually is making an effort to like do something.
Yeah.
And I'm getting pushed into community care because I can actually get the care I need when I need it, and it's not going to be a problem. Whereas with the VA, I put in a consultation twice for mental health, and they told me, oh, I guess these things fall through the cracks because my consultation got canceled because no one picked it up. Yikes. And then after I started seeing a social worker, then someone called me and said, hey, were you still wanting mental health care? I'm from the VA. And I'm like, dude, you're 2 months late. Like, where the fuck were you 2 months ago? So, and then when it comes down to it, like the VA and all the other people, and even some of the community, like I've been on some of these IW hikes, and like depending on what city you're in, the community's like view on us is pretty bad. In some places, like Chicago, for example, my first IW hike was in Chicago. People called us Nazis, people yelling at us, like, you know, like saying horrible shit to all of us, like saying we're white supremacists. And the Navy Pier wouldn't even let us on to the Navy Pier because we had American flags. Yeah, that was it.
You know, that actually reminds me of literally at my deployment, man. We used to have an American flag on one of our razors, and it was like the coolest thing. We all loved it. Like we were like, yeah, this is like the best razor here. Like, yeah. Somebody made us take it off because they said it was unprofessional.
With the American flag?
Yeah.
I know that was the same thing for us.
That?
We're like, this is the Navy Pier. All we're doing is it's a hike for suicide prevention, bringing veterans together through humor and camaraderie, and bringing it and like just all of us hanging out and trying to like help each other. And the Navy Pier tells us that we can't go on to the Navy Pier because of our American flags.
Oh, I'd have been talking mad
and they
shit.
Said that, and then cops were stopping us saying, they're like, why are you guys doing this? And one of them said, well, you got a permit. And the cop straight up said, I don't like your permit. And it's like, I don't give a shit if you like our permit or not. But like,
yeah, fuck that.
And the point I'm getting at with this is that like, at the end of the day, the only people that are looking out for us is us. But it also happens to be that the veteran community is toxic to itself. Like you have a lot of them that are just like, you know, they hate on other veterans because one's doing one thing and the other's doing another thing. And one's experience was different from another. And it's like, fucking stop. Because at the end of the day, we are all the same, and we all suffer in our own way. Yeah. And we have to help each other because no one else is there for us but us. And it's got to stop. Like the whole toxic fucking veteran community has got to stop. Because if it doesn't, some people stop, I know, and we all know some. We all know one, and it's also the bro vets. It really is a lot of the bro vets that are just like, you know, they gatekeep certain things from other people. They want to talk shit to other vets, like you got a grunt style shirt, you're a fucking idiot. It's like I have a cutout of Tim from Grunt Style. And that was because our first IW hike was we started off, we had a cookout the night before at the Grunt Style facility in Schaumburg.
Hey, yeah.
And Tim was supposed to be there. and he wasn't. So I took the cutout and I hiked with him strapped to my rucksack.
Yeah.
And then I took it home with me. So I have Tim with me all the time. Say hi, Tim. Like, look at this guy. Everyone thinks it's me for some reason. No, I don't have that good of a beard.
Oh,
But
man,
yeah.
that's funny. Some people just need to learn how to shut the fuck up, man, and just sit down and just do you. Well, the problem with fucking society today is so many people are focused on trying to fix other people that they don't work on themselves, and they forget that you can work on yourselves and be all right. We all need to help each other. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like so many people are focused on trying to fix other people's shit instead of trying to fix their own, and that's why we're stuck in this hot box of just getting fucked over. You know?
See, the thing I'm noticing, and it's not so much that people are trying to focus on helping other people that versus themselves.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm noticing is that people are looking to benefit themselves.
Yeah.
And get pissed off at other people, and then
That's what I'm saying. Like, they're talking mad shit about the
other
way
people's
people.
stuff. So,
Yeah.
like, let's say you have a guy that like he never deployed, but he's got some mental health issues because of his time in. Maybe he got maybe some shit happened to him while he was in. Sure, he didn't go to Afghanistan, and this other guy did. And it's like you got the guy that's like, I got 4 deployments, fucking suck it up. It's like, no, don't be like that, because everybody struggles differently. Everyone is different. You got to recognize that, and that's what a lot of the bro vet mentality people don't realize, that like, sure, he didn't have the same experience as you, but that doesn't negate what he's feeling. It doesn't invalidate, like, he has a mental health issue because of his experience. And they got to recognize that, and they don't. They just like say, I had it harder than you, shut up. Or it's like, how come
we're all human? Things affect people differently, man. It's just the way it works.
And the one thing that I've noticed is about like with people that hate on communities like Regiment. They talk shit about it because they think that it's one thing that it's not. And one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of people get pissed off because they don't think that it benefits their brand, when it's like, we're not here for everybody's brand. We're here for each other. It's the community that you're here for. So it's like, I look at all the people that I met through Regiment. It's like, that's why I hold it so dear to me. It's because like the people that I met, a lot of good people that I know, Doc being one of them. Like, he would he used to come over every weekend and do a podcast with me. Dude, we would hang out all the time and stuff. And like, we met because of Regiment. And it's like connections like that make connections with people. Don't come in here thinking that like you're going to be the next Nick fucking Merckx, because you're not. Like, none of us are.
No.
Like, you're not here to grow your fucking channel and stuff. Like, you're here for the community. Make friends with people.
Well, dude, and the beauty of it too, and we've talked about it on a couple episodes, is like, simply, like, you don't even have to be in Regiment to join the Regiment Discord. But if you are, that's even better. But you can simply join, and if you got something on your mind, shit, you could pop in the smoke pit and talk to somebody about it. Or you can make a channel to specifically find people that want to talk to you about it. Or if you want to play a fucking certain game with certain people, just say join for Tarkov, and all of a sudden you got a fucking 10 stack team playing Tarkov together, and you're running shit. Like, that's the fucking bare minimum of what Regiment does. And that itself is beautiful, And it's just so weird that people could even dare to talk shit. Like, it's just
you don't even, it's stuff like what I just said isn't just in Regiment, it's in every community. You'll have people like that in every single veteran community out there. Like, they just, they're a lot of them are in it for themselves. And one of my closest friends, who's in 7th group right now down in Florida, he even told me, because he was a recruiter for a bit, he even said that, like, especially with employment, like, you have a lot of employers that are really reluctant to hire veterans because the bro vets out there have made it hard for them to really look at us in a good light. So they look at us as like entitled. So there really is, you see it a lot. There's a sense of entitlement to a lot of guys and girls. When they get out, they think that they're owed the fucking world because of their service. It's like, sure, you're owed benefits and stuff. You put in a time, you put in a sacrifice, you should be entitled to certain things. However, when it comes to, let's say you want to do something with your life, like let's say you want to be a professional podcaster or a streamer, or you want to do something else professionally in your life, you have the means to do it. You just don't. Like, it's on you to figure out how to do that. Like, for me, getting in the trades, I went to trade school when I got out because I was like, I want to do this. Didn't work out. Now I'm going to do this. I use the schooling benefits at my disposal to get to this point. I don't want to rely on anybody for anything. And especially for the streaming and the podcast, that is 100% on me. It's not on Regiment. It's not on anybody. It's not on anybody at all to grow my shit for me except
Yeah.
me. And I have to do it the right. You have to do it the right way. You got to get to know people, talk to people, like
Hell yeah.
spread your brand, focus, invest. If you want to grow a brand, invest into that brand, and then compound on that through proper networking, not just send a fucking Discord link. Stop doing that, by the way. To unsolicited Discord links to people that you don't know.
Yeah.
Or sending like links to your channels to people that you don't know, thinking that that's how you do it. No, it's not.
Yeah.
Get to know people, and then like once you get to know people, make these connections, the word of mouth does the work for you.
Yeah.
And people just don't get that, and then they get pissed, and then they blame the org for not doing it for them. You know,
Yeah.
like
Or the system.
How long have you been in regiment?
I don't know, like probably 4 or 5 months. Not long.
So you, like with me being a moderator, like I see a lot more of that whole aspect is that like you have the people that will that are really only in the organization to grow their own thing, and then they get really pissed off when we don't grow it for them. And it's like we're not in the business of actually making your channel grow. We're in the business of setting up a community for you to intermingle with people on your own. Like get to know, like make friends. It's okay to make friends with people, you know?
Yeah. Yo, like last night, man, like that's how I got into Valorant. Is last night I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start popping through all these channels and I'm gonna start talking to all of these people. And I ended up meeting a group last night and they made me download Valorant. I was like, you know what? Yeah, you got me. I want to download Valorant. And I started playing games with them. 4 fucking games in a row that we won. No, I joined their group for a little bit, but they were actually, I think it was like Jax and somebody else that they were like teaching each other how to do like the whole OBS settings. So I backed out and went back to Lucid Omen. I was playing with him the most. And Jordania, I don't know if you're familiar with her.
Yeah, she's on
but that whole group. Yeah, that whole group, I was playing with them, man, and they were kind of teaching me the ropes. Now I was dabbling in a little bit of whiskey, and I was having a good time. And where I was yelling, I was doing my whole little commentator, like having a good time. But they were showing me the ropes, and Jordania was teaching me a whole bunch of tricks, like, hey, make sure you do this. Don't stop scanning the floor, and just it was really cool. It was a really good environment. But I do want to backtrack to what you had mentioned at one point. God, it was with well, originally I learned a portion of that when I was in the Kansas City Pioneers. Because their main thing is when you join, it's you're joining the team, but we also want to help you grow your brand a little bit. But at the same time, you got to understand that you're here with us, and that you're a part of this image that we provide. And at the same time, you can grow with the brand. You don't simply join somebody else's brand to push your brand into it and say, hey, but come to me. Like that's just not how the business works.
No,
right?
It's not.
Yeah.
And then that's the whole thing that is truly networking. Like when it comes down to it, like it really is. Like I've talked about this with Doc on the podcast, like, cause we had one incident where, people would come in and then they get pissed off and then they make a angry tweet about it and then they leave. Yeah. So it's just like, hey, like, that's not how you do this. Like, it's cool to have your own brand, give you the tools, like, like tell you like how to do it and stuff. But like you are the captain of your own ship. Like you are not the captain of your own ship being pushed by the other ship, like it's completely on you to do this. And that's what people don't want to put in the work because the sense of entitlement, they think because they did a certain thing, they should be owed this. Same with like the employment, when I was saying with the veterans and why employers don't really hire us. Yeah. It's because you get these guys that come in, they're like, I want to make $25 an hour starting. Why? What's your experience? I was in the Army. Okay, what did you do in the Army? I was infantry. Okay, so you're not going to get $25 an hour to be a fucking software engineer because you have no experience in that. Like, we're not doing that. Like, well, I should be able to do this, or like they don't want to do work because they feel like I've already done all the work I need to do. I had one bro that moment myself during the election in 2016 where someone told me, they asked me who I was voting for. I'm like, I don't think I'm voting for anybody. And she yelled at me. She's like, it is your fucking duty to vote. And I'm like, I don't have to do that at all. So that's not my duty to vote. So that's my right to vote. She's like, you owe to your country to vote. I'm like, I don't know anything in my country. Like, I already I said, I served. I just got out. Like, I was in the Army for like this amount of years. Like, I did my service. I don't have to fucking do that. It's not my duty. I did my duty. And that was the only time that I actually went that far with it, but I felt it was justified because someone was like, it's your duty. I'm like, no, it's not. I did my duty. Yeah. That was my duty.
I'm also humble enough to sit back and say, look, I'm not educated in either parties or really anybody who's running right now. So it's just not up to me to vote right now. I'm going to leave it to other people. But then again, if the whole entire nation thought the same way I did, I just found myself in a position where I am not educated enough to make the right vote here. Right. That's how I personally felt. And I'm so glad you said what you said, because talk about saving my fucking ship. Right. I was going to talk about just simply that's something that they're instilling in us right now as NCOs in general, is just being able to get down with our airmen and be able to help them out with actually writing a proper fucking resume when they get out, not just simply going and saying, I was in the military, because I guarantee you there's a lot of people who put that on their resume. What did you do? I was in the military. Okay, fucking. And like, what did you do in the military? What experience did you have in the military that grants you the ability to do this job here, right? Oh, okay. So
Mhm.
I was actually providing this and doing that. And I help people out with this. And I actually did this. And then I did this schooling. And it's like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Not just you simply being in the fucking military. It's all the experiences that you had together that you got to put in the resume. So me as an NCO, I'm really going to try to really tap into that, especially for my folks that are going to be getting out, so I can set them up for success outside of it, just not inside, you know?
The big thing about writing a resume from the veteran aspect to the
Mm-hmm.
civilian life is that you really have to, when it comes to your terms and what it is that you did, you got to
Mm-hmm.
turn it, you got to flip it into like something that relates to the civilian world.
Mm-hmm.
Because you could tell them, like, I made this mistake too. Like my resume, depending, and it really, you got to change your resume based off of where you want to work. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're doing something like I'm doing now, private security, sure, show all your military experiences and stuff and everything that you did and break it down like that
Yep.
for that company because they want to know that. But if you're
Mm-hmm.
doing what I'm trying to get into now with IT, I can't use that anymore. I have to actually turn it into something that translates to the civilian world and not reflect on the military experience. Like, sure, on my jobs history, sure, I'll put that in as my experience and then what I did. But when it comes to like all of my skills and all my other experiences, I have to flip this into like something that relates to IT,
Mm-hmm.
which, be honest, most of our jobs in the military don't. So you gotta, unless you were doing already something in IT in the
Yeah. Yeah.
army,
Yeah.
but it doesn't translate. So you have to find a way to get it to translate. Otherwise, they're just gonna look at it and then throw it aside. So like
Mm-hmm.
you can't rely on your military service on all these resumes. So they gotta really tweak it to condition it for the job that they want, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but it's good that you're showing them how to do that resume stuff because it's going to be very important down the line for them.
Oh yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned exactly what you just did, because I wanted to kind of get into that private, the security contract. And then at the same time, um, you would mention kind of the transition to civilian life, right? And we've had a lot of folks so far that I've already interviewed that talk about that transition being really, really tough. So I kind of wanted to pick your brain on that, kind of what's been getting you or got you through that transition into civilian life, what kept you pushing. And then at the same time, like you said, with the finding a way to fill out a better resume, what are some other things that you think that kind of helped you in that process? And what did that process really just look like for you?
So when it comes to like the transition from military to civilian life, one of the things that like now this worked for me and might not work for everybody else is to have be very goal oriented. Like
Mm-hmm.
set yourself up for you have your long-term goals and your short-term goals, and you want to like work towards how you can get to your long-term goal via short-term goals. So it's like when I got out, first thing I said, I'm going to school, right? So I'm going to go to school. What do I have to study? What do I want to go to school for? All right, I figured out what I want to do as a career, go to school for that. Honestly, talk to your veteran services officer about like your disability and stuff. And I highly recommend, if you guys are in right now, go to the clinic for everything,
Mm-hmm.
because then like once you get shown on the paperwork and your records, you got seen for this, you got treated for this, no matter how little it is. It's just like my butthole hurts or whatever. So like just go there and like, just go to your therapy or whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
And then guess what? Service connected, because it's on your paperwork. But then also look in your education benefits and find out your goals. Like, what do you want to do? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to go to school, you want to do this semester. Cool. How many credits do you want to do? That'll determine like your VA benefits from the GI Bill or whatever you use. Also find out what all benefits you have at your disposal, especially
Mm-hmm.
for like, education. Because in my state, I have the post 9/11 GI Bill and the state of Wisconsin GI Bill, which is essentially the post 9/11 GI Bill, but for the state. It does the same benefits, pays out and everything the same way the 9/11 GI Bill does. So it's like an additional educational benefit.
Mm-hmm.
So with these goals in mind, it gives you kind of a sense of purpose. Because one of the biggest things that I've noticed when the guys get out, they don't know what to do with themselves. They have no plan. And even though, yes, I did have a plan, the plan didn't work out in the long run the way I wanted it to, but I had to come up with a new plan.
Mm-hmm.
But have some kind of a plan to set yourself up. What are you going to do to start off when you get out? Because as soon as you get out, you are completely on your own. You might have friends or family that might help you at first, but it's completely on you. So you have these goals to give yourself a sense of purpose, which a lot of guys struggle with. They don't know what their purpose is anymore. But research before you get out. Set these goals up, work on one goal, then the next goal. Cool, you got that one done. Then so on and so forth until you finally reach your end goal. But there's also the biggest thing that other guys struggle with, including myself, was the disconnect between the civilians and us. They can't, you guys, like, you can't relate to each other. Especially in the workplace, and even more so in school, because you're going to school and there's a lot of people in there that are just coming out of high school and they have no idea of the experience that you have. So you kind of just don't really make many friends. And even if you did have friends in the civilian world, when you get out, you find it really hard to relate to them outside of that, which is one of the reasons why me and my buddies, when we started recording our podcasts, like all of us, it was tough, because the conversations like what you and I just had, or what me and Doc would have, are not going to be the same conversations that I would have with them, because they just don't understand. And it's not their fault that they don't understand, but recognize that that's a thing, that it's not anybody's fault that one person doesn't understand the other and you can't relate. It's okay. But it also is extremely lonely because of that. But because it's lonely, you have to focus on how to better yourself and how it will benefit you in order to, like, get that transition a lot smoother. It's tough. It is tough, but it's doable.
So I have another question too, along with that. It's in regards to attitude. Because if you think about, especially with you being, paratrooper, and I'm sure you were armed up a majority of your career, right?
Yeah.
And with me being a cop, right, I can't imagine right now getting out and not waking up at 04:30, getting ready to go in a guard mount, preparing for the next tour of duty, strapping up with a weapon, and going and doing that job. So for people that have that gung-ho attitude, that whole, this is what I do in the military, blah, 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 blah. And then when they're getting out, they are not going to be a full-time police officer, or not going into private security, or whatever it be. Do you have any advice for people trying to not get away, but trying to suppress that kind of gung-ho attitude when they're trying to transition into civilian, and not go into a classroom being like, yeah, fucking guns, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you have any advice for that? Or did that something you experienced at all?
Not really. I guess one of the reasons why is because I was fairly older when I joined. Okay. So I was 23 when I joined, and I was 24 when I got to my unit.
Oh shit.
Yes, I'm in my mid 30s now. So,
but I mean, that probably made your career, somewhat better, I guess, in a way.
It did, but on the other hand, yeah, it did, because, like, I had a better understanding of how the world outside of that works before I came in. And a lot of guys that join when they're 18, they don't. So they come in, they think it's one thing, they're used to this, they get out, they're like, now what? So the ones that struggle the most, I've noticed, are the ones that join fairly young.
Yep.
Because now they don't have that sense of direction anymore. But before I joined, I did. I was already living on my own. I went to school. I had jobs and all that shit. I just didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to do this. So I had the understanding of, like, adult responsibilities on my own. So, but when it comes to that gung-ho attitude when you get out, there's other ways to focus on that, because there will be, like, you'll eventually adjust to it, and it happens a lot quicker in some cases than others. Like the waking up early every day, like, eventually that fucking goes away, because now you don't have to. You don't have to shave, but please keep up with your beard and don't look like me. As soon as I got out, I looked like a fucking. Someone told me, like, you look like a Taliban elder, because my beard was so unkept and long, because it was just, it didn't grow. It doesn't grow very well. Yeah. So I have to keep it at a certain length, but I just let that shit grow. I'm like, I'm never touching a razor blade again. Fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it.
So like basically, like, you focus that mentality on other things. So, like, you wake up, all right, cool. Give yourself a different routine. Get up, make your bed, brush your teeth, take a shower, go to the gym. And that's a big thing I will harp on, is keep going to the fucking gym.
Yes.
because it's very easy to get lazy because you're not getting fed the same. You're not getting fed the same way. The training isn't as hard. The workout isn't as consistent. You have to be on your own and get your own gym membership, but just stay active in another way. Because the more active you are, the better like you'll feel, like especially mentally. Like that's the one thing that it's like complacency kills, but in more way than one. Complacency will like eat at your mind, and you sit there and you keep doing the same monotonous thing, and you're not active. Like you're gonna go crazy. You're gonna feel like shit mentally and physically. And
give me the definition of insanity right now.
Doing the same thing over and over again,
expecting a different outcome. Cool. Okay, keep going.
So yeah, like essentially when you get out, you become complacent and doing nothing, that it just eats away at you physically and mentally. So you got to stay active, find things that you like, right? Find an interest or a hobby and focus on that hobby as well. Put that into your routine. So like, let's say that you're also trying to find a job. Okay. Find a job, find something that you like. Okay. Which is probably going to be a little bit easier now than before.
Yeah.
Because everybody needs somebody now. But also, if you want to make that further, like I said, go to school. That's another thing to focus in your routine, because now you have another thing to do. You can add that to your routine, do your homework, go to class. You know, as much as you might hate being in class, you can do online, you know, and then focus on that work, improving your work, improving yourself, and just like stay active. Go to the, like, honestly, go to the gym. Yeah, I know I'm not I'm not in the best shape in the world, but like, but hey, like I still go to the gym at least 4 to 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And but also understand, like, without that routine, that's where guys get lost. So just make a new routine on your own terms where you don't have to worry about waking up to go to fucking PT every morning. Or if you want to go to the gym, guess what? You don't have to pass a PT test anymore. So you just go and you're like, I want to be jacked out of my fucking mind. Go for it. Cool.
Yeah.
Go do that. Focus. Make that your focus. Hyper focus on that. You know, give yourself all these different tasks. Do things around the house. Like if you live at home, help your parents a little bit. Do the lawn, do laundry, clean the house a little bit. Give yourself something to do.
Mow the lawn. Be a man.
Mow the lawn. Be a man. Eat the grass. Be a man.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it is. And then also another thing is save your money. Go travel. Like if you want to, like go experience something. Like you get out and you're like, you know, I do have some money. I can go on a vacation if I want. Just go do it. Like it's okay to do that. And yeah, and then like also get involved with other vets. Like because every vet needs somebody to get, you know, to like have someone to relate to and have a conversation with. Because without that, like it's, and I'm sure like with the guys that get out, I'm sure they all have the same experience, and they run into somebody in the bar, and then next thing you know, you both find out you were vets, and then you guys just talk about shit, and then you feel better. That's what the IW hikes are like. So you go on these hikes, and you know, a lot of guys, every person that I know that has said they just don't want to because, you know, veteran communities, and that's where, you know, the toxicity comes in. But I tell them, go to these hikes. I promise you, you will not regret it. Every single person that was reluctant to go was really glad they went, because it was like, hey, I have that sense of brotherhood again. I like talking to people that I can relate to. We had fun. It was nice to connect with these people. Yeah, that's why they're there. Go do them. As much as you don't feel like it'll help you and you don't feel like doing it, fucking do it, because you won't regret it. I promise. And this goes gaming. That's a huge thing. Yeah. Like gaming is another outlet. You want to focus on being a good person at Valorant. Cool, do that. Don't let it completely overtake everything.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're playing. It's like, it's like 7 a.m. Let's play some Val, and you try to look at the clock. Like it's 9 o'clock at night now. What have I done? So it's easy to do that shit, but don't do that.
Yeah, and I like what you said about the job too, because it's funny. I was talking to somebody yesterday. It's kind of my in doc for where I'm at, my new base. But it's called Task Force True North, and they're kind of like they're like, for people that don't understand what it is, and the easiest way for me to explain it is like they're like standby therapists. It's you between medical, you know, but at the same time they're just kind of there. They're just there. You walk into the room, you shut the door, and you're just like, fuck this, fuck that, fucking and then you leave, and it's like it never happened, right? Super cool. But I had to do my little in doc with her. And obviously, naturally, right? I like to talk. So our conversation went for a while and I just started talking and talking and talking and talking. But she started talking because I brought up my financial situation, right? I'm not in the best financial situation. We all have things that we need to work on. One for me is my financial situation. I'm very open about it because I've always lived paycheck to paycheck and I've never had an issue with it. But what I do have an issue with is not being able to have that emergency fund, right? So that's something I'm trying to work on right now. She started talking about moonlighting. And she was like, look, right now, you mentioned it, jobs right now are pretty easy to get because nobody wants to fucking do a job. And she's like, I went to a place and told them, I will only work on Saturday. I will work from 8 to 4, and that is when I'm going to work. I will leave and come whenever the fuck I want, kind of whatever, but I will be here on Saturday to do your job and take care of what you need. And they said, absolutely, too easy, right? And that's a lot of places right now. If you were just willing to do the bare minimum, do the fucking job, an establishment will go, thank you. Fucking thank you. Yep. Welcome to the job. You know what I'm saying? So that's just one of those things that I kind of want to just put out there right now. Like if you want to make some good money and you want to, if you can just simply do a fucking job, like most people for some reason can't, like it's there, you know, and go
Employers
do it.
right now have become a lot more flexible with things
Mhm.
because they need people. And that goes the same with the current job I have. I personally hate the job that I do
Yeah.
because it's the same. It's literally Groundhog Day every time I'm there, but I'm only there 2 days a week.
Mhm.
And that's because of school. So I got VA disability, GI Bill pay, and then whatever I'm making off this, and it's enough to really hold me over. I own my own house, I have my own car, I have money put
Fuck
away
yeah.
for whatever I need, and these, and I learned these
Congratulations,
from.
by the way.
Well, here's the thing: I learned this the hard way with finances because
Mhm.
when I first got out of the army, I had 85 grand waiting for me in a
Mhm.
fund because
Mhm.
my grandfather left me money when he passed. So,
Mhm.
and you know what I did? I spent all of it within 6 months on bullshit. Like I had money to well, first few things I did was I paid off my bike, I paid off my Star card. Don't get one of those, by the way. I got forced to get
Sorry.
one by my command team, by the way.
Hey, let's go, dude. Burger
So
King for days.
like I don't like, I paid off all my credit card debts. And
Mhm.
I paid off my bike, bumped my credit score up for doing that, and I put a down payment on a new car. So because I didn't have a car, I just had a bike.
Yeah.
So I did that. Those are the first few responsible things I did. However, I still
Oh
had
my.
like 60 grand left,
Hey.
and none of it went to anything like good. I bought like
Oof.
$1,000 airsoft gun. I bought actual guns. I went and bought a
Hey.
fucking new pair of boots. I went on trips. I went to the bar all the time. I traveled all the time. I just blew all the money I had, and I wasn't
Mhm.
working. So I had no income. I started working as a roofer to kind of, bring in more money, but I was spending it faster than I was making it. So I learned, and then it got to the point where my card was declined and I couldn't buy a coffee. And I was like, what? And I looked at my account. And I'm like, this reality set in. I
Yeah.
burned through 80 grand in a few months. And it was
That's
like,
dude.
it was the worst feeling in my life. And I was like, I would never want to do this again. So
Dude,
then,
I couldn't even imagine.
oh, it sucked. So like once I started getting into the trades, I started
Mhm.
saving up, and then I bought my house, and then I just kind of held on to like a certain amount of money.
Yeah.
And now with me being on the GI Bill and on disability, like the biggest thing that helped me was like being on having some disability come in. Like
Mhm.
that's an extra couple grand a month now that I don't have
Yeah.
to that I don't ever
Shit.
have to worry about for the rest of my life. So
Mhm.
that gets added. So now I have like myself a better financial situation. I'm not financially irresponsible, because it's easy to fall in that pit of like, I'm just going to buy all these cool things because now I can. Like, don't do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Do it within reason. Like, it's okay to buy yourself something once in a while,
Mhm.
but like the financial situation I'm in now is way better than when I got out because I've learned responsibility.
Yeah.
So that's a huge thing that a lot of guys need to understand. Like, don't go splurging on things because you will be
Mhm.
broke and you will regret it, and then you'll be in a worse situation than you are when you got there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
There's
living
nothing like
paycheck.
standing in Popeyes and being like, I don't know if my card's gonna process this. This is actually, and then having
Oh
to go
yeah,
into your
dude.
bank account and go, you know?
It's nice now. I mean, it really took like when I blew all that money was in 2016, and I'm just now in a point where I'm like not really too worried about money right now. Like
That's
I
good
can
with these
buy.
fucking gas prices, even though they're kinda going down. We're at like 350, I think. Thank fuck where I'm at,
Yeah, where I'm at, it's like 3.99. Like gas prices like had me concerned for a bit. I'm like, it cost me. I drive a Honda Accord, and it cost me
Hey,
$80 to fill up my car at one
damn.
point. And I was like,
wow.
I can't afford this every week. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yo, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Sorry, dude. Big ass
You had a
spider.
bug?
Yeah, dude.
You have one of those,
Dude,
you
it's
have that
crazy going from
salt
North
gun?
Dakota. I wish, dude. I wish, but you know what? I need to, be financially responsible, and not do that. But going from North Dakota, dude, there's like no bugs out there. And then now I'm in New Mexico, and bug fucking city, dude. The other day I was taking a shit, dude, a little roach, and I was just like, oh yeah, and I'm like,
Yeah,
that's right,
luckily in
bugs are a thing
Wisconsin,
again.
we don't have roaches, so it's pretty nice because oh, we do actually have roaches because some places, are shittier than others.
Mm-hmm.
But
And
yeah.
see, I don't mind roaches. I mean, they're freaky looking fucking things. But you know what I do have a problem with is when I was going up my damn staircase and there was a stink bug on it. And I was like, oh, how am I supposed to get this out of here without it exploding? But
Oh,
I
stink
managed to
bugs
do
are
it.
bad here.
Yeah,
Stink bugs
man.
are really bad here. They're
Ugh.
everywhere. It's such a
Yeah.
nightmare.
It's fucking ridiculous, dude.
So what do you plan on staying in or are you getting out?
I mean, that's a loaded question. I would like to stay in, but it's kind of figuring out what I truly want to do, because I like being a cop and I actually really admire getting out and being a full-time cop. But at the same time, I really do. I like this whole, podcasting thing and the potential for that. And I like to write short stories and I want to get into that. But it's like, it's where you start weighing those priorities. So right now I really need to figure out what's going to fucking keep me standing up, right? Not getting out and trying to rely on something and then, go bankrupt and whatever. So as of right now, yes, I'm probably going to end up re-enlisting and just keep doing this. But I'm going to keep doing everything else that I do, the podcast, everything else that I'm interested in. And we'll kind of see. But yeah, I don't know. Fuck. I teeter-totter because I would like to also get out and be a full-time cop, though. Kind of have something that's a little bit more, I guess you could say,
Stable.
stable. Yeah. Not the idea of being a military cop forever. And then one day they go, get the fuck out of here. I would like to be able to go somewhere where it's like, okay, now we can really start looking at actual long-term goals. Like, where do I want to be 10 years down the line at this police department? What do I want to be doing? Right. But it's just, I don't know. The idea of just being a cop, I've always respected doing it right, doing the job. And especially right now, people are like, this is not the time to be a cop. And I'm like, fucking wrong. This is the time to be an actual cop because we need it. We need it. We need people who want to actually do the job, not just put on the uniform just so they can say that they're a fucking cop and have authority. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
It's the same with me. Like, the IT career that I have is going to be like, for the stability of having a work life. But my podcast is like, I've had my podcast since 2019 and I have it and I keep doing it because I love doing it.
Yeah.
Because, it's like it's my one time to get with my friends and talk about things and like talk about and like kind of have a good time with it because it's a fun conversation. I like to show my buddies like really fucked up things on the internet once in a while. And that's like kind of what encompasses being the Blacklisted Gaming Podcast is that I will find some of the most disgusting shit on the internet and be like, hey, did you see this? Look at this. And then be like pooping and eating it. So it's like, it's just like, it's stuff like that. And then we talk about gaming and how Activision sucks. So, but yeah, it's like, it's my hobby and I enjoy doing it. And it's the one thing that like breaks up the monotony of a work life because it's fun.
My thing, I'm a very, very, very nice guy. Like, yeah, I got that, that attitude, like, fuck this and fuck that. But at the end of the day, man, I'm a very, very nice guy and to a fault. Like, it does get me in situations where I give too much, right? But this is my version of being able to help people. I like to help people in any way that I can. So that's why when the show first started, I put out that tweet that said, look, I'm trying to build a podium to let people be able to come here and tell their story because I believe that people's stories are motivational in themselves. And then at the same time, dude, there are so many people that I know in regiment that deserve to be able to tell a story, but at the same time have motivational medicine that I want them to be able to put out in the world. Because look, Black Rifle does it well. And these other companies that do these veteran type shows do it well, right? But they're not going to bring on just some average Joe. But I mean, I wouldn't even call them an average Joe, but like I'm using it in the perspective of like Regiment GG, getting some of these folks, they're not going to get onto the Black Rifle podcast. So I want them on here to be able to tell their story here because they still have not those crazy ass stories, but at the same time, they still have that motivational medicine and they still have that story that's still going to help somebody down the road. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
and somebody's going to hear and be like, I want that. So that's why I do what I do. And that's why I enjoy this podcasting gig in general is it allows me to give somebody a podium to just come and tell their story and let it all off,
And that's a good way to doing it, because you give them an outlet to actually express that. Whereas, like for example, on my podcast, like it's the biggest thing that, like, I'm sure a lot of people are like, how do I start a podcast? So I want to kind of get in this conversation real quick.
Yeah,
so there's a lot of people that want to know how to start a podcast. The number one thing that you need to do to have a podcast is to have something of a goal of like a direction you want your podcast to go. What is the intent of it? Because without an intent, it's easy to record yourself talking to people and just having your conversation with your friends all the time. But where does that go, except for the same place every single time you record? No one's gonna.
Let me answer that. I want to answer that like you asked me the question, because this is how I sell certain people that, because I'll talk to some people in the military that are getting ready to get out, and I'm like, well, do you like military shit when you're not in fucking uniform? And people will go, well, no. And I'm like, well, you know what? The show is military based, but at the same time, we talk about gaming. But at the end of the day, what I want somebody to do after every single episode, I want you to walk away with something. I.e. the advice, i.e. the help on transitioning from military to civilian. Hopefully something in this show, every episode, you're able to walk away and go, I want to use that. I like that. I'm going to use that.
And my whole goal with mine is to kind of inform people, and especially in the gaming world, is inform them on, make better decisions for the gaming world, to help. The gaming industry right now is in a fucking weird place.
It is.
And like, I want my podcast to be like, hey, come here for information, do with it with what you will, and then make a decision based off that, and don't follow hype trains and stuff all the time, and just like understand, like, why are games the way they are right now? Well, here's why. This is what's going on behind the scenes, stuff like that. So like when you're making a podcast, you have to have a direction you want to go. So like for you want to have people like walk away with something with, like the inspiration or like, some train of thought, and then like also have people tell their story. Whereas also with mine, like people also could tell their story, but for the most part, it's like I want it to be informative but fun. Have a place where people can watch and like laugh and be like, that shit's fucking disgusting but hilarious, or or like but also learn something about like one of their favorite hobbies, because the gaming industry, there's the veteran community is very heavy in gaming, so it's like, but they don't know a lot of things about certain parts of gaming. So that's the direction for it. And then that's the number one thing, find your direction. The other thing is to basically, I guess that's it, honestly.
Direction. Oh yeah, you got a direct. Then you just fucking talk, like just say shit.
But especially, and then when it comes to equipment, like research your equipment. You don't have to have, like me, I've got a Rodecaster mixer and stuff, and like and a condenser microphone and an Elgato camera and all that stuff. I didn't start off with this. I started with a MacBook and a Yeti Blue microphone that 4 people talked into.
Snowball?
Well, no, the Blue. Just the regular Yeti one, the big one. So like it was like literally I put it on omnidirectional and 4 people talked into one microphone. Dude, that shit was nuts when I first started off. It was just chaos.
Yeah, so 3 people start talking and the microphone's like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it just becomes chaos. And then I bought 3 microphones, or first I bought 2 microphones and 1 mixer to actually like separate the audio from each person. And then the video thing is actually relatively new. Like I used to stream it. Like I've even streamed a couple episodes on Regiment, like back a while ago. But then I would stream it sometimes on my Twitch and shit, and like get the audience engaged with the conversation that we're having. And then the video thing after that turned into like this. I have several cameras set up with lights and everything and stuff, and it kind of made it into like a little studio-ish thing, but I also stream out of it. So it's like, if you're looking to be like fucking Joe Rogan right now, it's like Joe Rogan started off talking into his fucking AirPods, into like his headphone headset, and they had just like some little shitty camera on their laptop when they started off. Like you will start off like you can do it and just figure out how to grow from that technologically. Don't try to invest on all the crazy equipment off the bat. It's not gonna, because I'm looking at your microphone right now. I want that microphone, but it's like a $350 mic.
Yeah,
right.
The M7. I think it's the M7B or
M7B
or
M7B. Yeah, it's like the M70B or something.
Oh no, this is the shortened version though. This is like the one that's for podcasters. So I think this one's actually like $250. But I invested in this after the other one that I had was just really picking up way too much shit in the background, no matter what I did with it. And I'm like, dude, like,
now that actually goes off your mixer. You know that, right?
What, this?
So you get a condenser microphone, it'll still pick up background noise, but it's on your mixer to actually fix that.
Mm-hmm.
So you can actually have like the Rodecaster that I'm using right now has a background filter.
Yeah.
So that's why like you notice that like you don't really hear anything behind me and my air is cranking right now, right?
Yeah. And I love
So,
every second of that.
and so it's all in the mixer. You got to find the right settings. It's all about the mixer you use to make your audio sound a certain way. You can have the best mic. You can have the big version of the mic that you have, the one that Rogan uses. But without a good mixer, it's not going to really make a difference.
Yeah. Well, I'm not even using a mixer though. I'm using literally the USB plug-in
Right.
right
Yeah.
now. Because you're definitely light years ahead of me when it comes to the whole like actual plug-in, like in-person kind of thing. Because mine's always been a virtual thing. I've always been virtual with somebody else. It's somewhere else across the world, and we're hosting the podcast just like that. That's kind of been my gig. I've never had somebody around me personally that's one matches the energy that I have, and then two, like just they don't accept. I'd be like, hey man, you want to do a couple shows with me in person? Like, let's get down. And they'll just be like, no, like just like you said, no, that's just not for me. That's your thing. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm getting at. I want you to be on here because you have stories. I want you to be able to share them. And I want to be able to do something in person for a change instead of always doing this virtual show all the time. So you definitely got the good when it comes to like the setup over there.
It evolves, right? So like one thing that I've noticed is that like I do more in person than virtual. And the reason why is because when you have the person in front of you, the conversation is different. Like the dynamic between you and the other person is completely different. And then like the digital screen, it works for like situations like this where you're in fucking New Mexico and I'm in Wisconsin. Obviously, I'm not going to be there with you.
Yeah.
But like these things evolve and they evolve at your pace. So you can choose to you like invest in certain things as it goes, right? So like for like as you evolve it, like it changes everything. And then when you will eventually get to the, like if you stick with it, which I'm sure you will, because that seems to be the direction you want to go.
Yeah.
Eventually you will have more like in-person stuff.
And I definitely want to get there, but I think the main thing I did the USB thing is because I'm a mobile guy. Like I like to do a lot of things on the fly. Like I'm a real last second person. Like you could hit me up last second, you'd be like, "Hey man, you trying to go to the mountains?" I'll be like, "Yes." Now, me, on the other hand, when I ask people that, everyone's like, what the fuck? And I'm like, wow, why aren't more people like me? Right? But I like to go certain places. I like to go be certain places for a certain amount of time. So I like my shit to be mobile. I like it to come with me. So all I need is a laptop and a fucking microphone, and I am game. I don't need like the whole setup.
It still works. That's the beauty of podcasting. You can do it anywhere you want. You don't even need the crazy equipment to do it. If you have to like go on the fly for it, like if you're in the field, you can do a podcast in the field if you have like a couple hours of downtime. It can be done. That's the thing.
That's what the doc talked about, dude. The radio host that on his deployment and everything, right? And I just think that stuff's like crazy, you know.
Well, any other questions you got for me?
I think there was something else along the lines of that. Well, throw out my. Oh, it was along the advice too. I think another advice just for podcasting. I think natural is just like a big part of it too. You know, just being natural. Because I know people talk about it like when you going off a script. It's just like if me and you were going off a script right now and going blah 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 blah. Okay, now we're blah blah blah, and it would just be kind of weird. You know, I think natural conversation is a beautiful thing.
So there's a difference between scripting and templating. So like you have. What I like to do when I have a guest on is I like to have like a template of talking points and then let the conversation flow and then bring up another talking point. So like, or like for me with the topics, like I'll go through and research topics and then I'll put them all in order. And then when me and my buddy get together, we'll have like 30 minutes to an hour of just shooting the shit. And then we'll go over a list of topics. And then at the end, we shoot the shit again. So it's not, it's like, that's the kind of the template of it because it flows. So like when you're going off a script, it's, you don't want it to seem like scripted because it doesn't flow right. But if you have like basically bullet points, right, so of what you want to talk about, it's a good way to do it without losing focus. So because like one of the biggest issues that I had for a long time was that like I just kind of went with it. And but we would squirrel off, like me and Doc especially. We will squirrel off, and there's nothing like we'll just get off in this fucking off the wall topic about something random, and then
that's how our show went.
50 other things that we have to talk about that I want to ask or just discuss. And then an hour's gone, and then and I missed it. So like it's good to have like kind of like talking points without scripting it. Just like you want to talk about this, and then I want to talk about this, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I, you know what? I like that you mentioned it the way that you just mentioned it, because that's what I was going to send you when I mentioned that draft, right? I was going to
Mhm.
send you literally the bullet points, and that's how we do it. But it's like the last episode that I did, I brought on a prior K9 handler, and me and him, we just went off the wall. And I'm telling you, man, when we talk about like just in a podcast perspective, it was just beautiful, man, just naturally, just. And by the end of the
Mhm.
show, I was like, yo, that was amazing. So I'm like, I really wanted to tap into this whole natural thing, which I think it went good for the show too, as well. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's still kind of hitting those key little points, you know. And then what I need to do is start bringing a little notepad too. And just when I get like, when somebody mentions something and I'm like, oh, yeah, I need to bring that up after. And then so like when I lost my train of thought earlier, you know, I don't feel like that's good as a host, you know, because I really wanted to tie it right back in right off the bat. But
Well,
yeah, things like that. But
eventually
this
with
is,
experience, you'll learn to make mental note of it.
yeah.
So like
Wow.
the
My
more you do
mental's
it, the
kind of,
more easy it becomes to like make a mental note of things.
mhm.
So it's just like it all comes with experience. So I mean, like, I'm not saying that I have like the fucking biggest podcast in the world and I know everything, because I don't. But like, it's
No, but
just
you
like
got
things that
fucking experience, man. You know?
it's the things that you pick up along the way. Yeah.
Yeah. And I will never, ever, and I said in the very first episode when I talked to Two Pete, like I'll never be like, oh yeah, man, since I did the podcast with KCP and then I used to do it with Orbit back in 2016, that I know exactly what the fuck I'm doing. No, the hell I don't. And I'm gonna be humble for the rest of my fucking career, because you can always learn something. And that's the best part about it. Even when I think we talked to him specifically about, like, when I was talking to my folks about, like, I feel like I have to have everything figured out, you know, and that's a thing with a lot of this younger generation, right? In the early
Mhm.
20s, thinking you have to have everything figured out. But if you have everything figured out at the age of 24, what the fuck are you supposed to do for the rest of your life? So if I have everything figured out with podcasting right now, what the hell am I supposed to keep doing? No, I want to keep learning and I want to keep finding out new things, because it's not always going to be, you know, a hit. It's not always going to be like right on the fucking nail that, you know, blah, 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 blah. But I think that's also the beauty of it, you know?
Mhm.
So, but I appreciate you, man, by the way, especially for coming on to the show, for coming on, sharing everything, all of your experiences, and at the same time talking about what can make a podcast better, because it's better for this show that I'm trying to do. And then anybody else that's made it this far, and I'm sure there are some people that want to start their own podcast, and I think it's huge, right? And don't think that just because you have a fucking AirPod and only and when we talk about iPhones nowadays too, if you got them new AirPod Pros and you got that new iPhone, yo, just record yourself and tear it up, you know, because even that itself, like if you have good talking points and you can just go and go, like that's the whole point of a podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So just because you're starting on AirPods, that doesn't mean anything. Even then, I would like to go listen to the older, you know, that's my opinion though, but I would like to go and listen to older versions of people's shows, because I think it's cool, you know, like, man, it all started with this, you know, it didn't start with somebody granted this Shure microphone and this blah 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 blah, right? I don't know.
I do that
Got to
all the
start somewhere.
time. Like the Joe Rogan Bob Lazar one talking about UFOs and shit. That one still holds up, and that was done in 2019.
Oh hell yeah, dude!
So,
Fucking love it. Yeah.
but yeah. So if there's nothing else, man, of course
No,
I love
that's
being on here. Like if you want me again, just reach out to me. You know where to find me.
yeah. No, of course. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Once again, thanks for coming on the show. Happy for you, man. Got a lot of good things going. What year did you get out, by the way?
Um, Technically active 2016, and then National Guard I got out in 2020, right before COVID. Right before it. I missed that train. Thank God.
Yeah, I was deployed during that phase, so they kind of kept us out there for an additional like 3 months, and we are just like, "Ayo, what the fuck?" Like, it wouldn't have been bad if everything didn't get shut down, like our MWR. I would have still liked to be able to go watch Band of Brothers every day, but we couldn't. But I do remember pulling out one of the old. This is where I really got into Eastbound and Down again. I don't know if you've seen that with
Oh
Kenny
yeah.
Powers, the Kenny fucking Powers. I took one of their old little DVD players, dude, and I just took the whole DVD set of Eastbound and Down. Man, I remember sitting in my little Connex box, dude, just like, yeah, this was cool. Yeah, it was a good time. Getting paid to just sit and watch Eastbound and Down. Gotta love it. Air Force Holt. Fucking A. Well, hey, man, it was a pleasure having you on the show, dude. I
Absolutely,
appreciate
man.
you for coming on.
Absolutely, dude. But yeah, if you guys are interested, like Blacklisted Gaming Podcast, if you want to talk
Yeah, I
about
was gonna
gaming
say,
and
plug
stuff.
yourself, man. Plug
So
it.
you can find me on YouTube at the Blacklisted Gaming Podcast. You can find me on Spotify at the Blacklisted Gaming Podcast. You can find me on Twitch at Blacklisted_gaming, and also on Twitter BLGPTTV, all that stuff. So
Fucking sweet. That's what I'm talking about. Everybody who's made it this far, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed. Obviously, G Fuel, Gamer Advantage, Paradox, appreciate y'all for being along for the ride, being along for the mission. Same thing, Stack Up. You guys are doing incredible things over there. We're so glad to be working side by side with you guys. The mission that we're all doing is important. It's incredible. And we hope you guys enjoy this episode. We'll see you in the next one.
Later.